a friend or enemy or a friend. Right now things are hectic, so who is serious or playing tricks? Firm meditation, don't stop in nothing foolish. Keep your heart clean and strong, let your God self be established, and strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times, it's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times, strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times, it's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Take this advice a mother once gave to her son. Give not all your strength to the lecherous woman, nor to the ways that can destroy a true king man. 'Cause Delilah's on the prowl and she's a deadly one. So strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. This is surely not the time to backslide. Don't let the wrong thoughts take you for a ride. Temptation pretty and a dazzle in your eyes. Your road in this world you have to realize. Cause it's a you the serpent who want brutalize. So strengthen up yourself, your youth and your wife. Bring forth good fruit, child, the future of your life. Bring forth good fruit, child, the future of your life. Oh, strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Serious times. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. This is surely not the time to backslide. Don't let the wrong thoughts take you for a ride. Temptation pretty and a dazzle in your eyes. Your road in this world you have to realize. As it's a you the serpent want brutalize. So strengthen up yourself, your youth and your wife. Bring forth good fruit, child, the future of life. Shalom family, shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. I hope everyone is doing well this evening or nighttime or morning, wherever you are. I hope that our family is doing okay. And I pray that everyone is in excellent health. Greetings in the name of our King, and welcome once again to the Hebrew Broadcasting Network, where we talk about things Hebraic to bring understanding and enlightenment to our people scattered among these nations. We have been speaking about Diaspora, and we want to continue tonight with regards to Diaspora. And this time we're going to cover some things from the Hispanic perspective, and hopefully that won't be the last. We have plenty of stuff to go through, and we'll do our best to cover as much as possible. So I hope everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, just type in shalom or yes or something. So make sure I'm coming through okay. Okay, thank you so much, Sister Mary. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, so before we start, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So before we start, let's have a word of prayer and ask the Most High for guidance. I will utter the tefillah, part of it in the language of our forefathers and also the language of this unfortunate captivity.
Urukata Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu et derek hayeshua, b'Moshiach hayeshua. Abba, I'm grateful to you for your love and your mercy, which endures forever. Thanking you so much for this opportunity to come before you in prayer and to present once again a teaching for the house of Israel scattered among these nations. I pray, Abba, that you'll open our understanding, that you'll give us guidance, and that you bless each and every one of us, that we can truly be set apart, not only on the outside, but also inwardly. I pray for our families worldwide, that they're in good health, that you take good care of them as you always have. And I pray that you protect us with your angels. Abba, I pray that you make the time short and to renew the covenant once again, to regather us and to bring us back to you. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Amen. So once again, family, greetings and welcome. I pray that everyone is definitely in excellent health. So we're going to talk about diaspora. Last time we talked about it, we covered things from pretty much from Africa standpoint, and we cover some things about what the heathen, what the Gentiles, those in power have been saying, because we're always having these contentions, people disagreeing, people saying, you guys just wish to be Israelites and the real Israelites are in Israel already, and all kinds of different things. And so I presented some information to show that we're not saying this thing about ourselves per se. It's you have other nations that are saying that we are the Israelites, not just historically, but also according to the scriptures. We're also going to deal with another issue, and that issue is a question that always seems to come up or always have a problem. Whenever we talk about the Hispanic diaspora, for some strange reason, there's a lot of arguments, especially from people that look like you and I. Um, they always say, well, and I'll just give you a couple of arguments because I'm sure y'all can fill in the blanks. But one of the arguments that has been made is that Sephardic Jews, for example, those Jews who are in Latin countries, are not our people because they have trafficked enslaved black Hebrews. So that is one of the arguments, and I'm sure you probably have heard that too. Now, these people can't be associated with Israel because Israel looks more like the Hamites and such like, or have dark skin and curly hair and things like that. One of the other arguments that has been made is that Sephardic Jews were never slaves, nor served another nation. That's also a second argument. And again, there are many who can write in or say or comment and criticize based on limited information. Again, we call upon the scriptures to give us guidance, and in Deuteronomy, it speaks of Israel being into corners of the earth, four corners. Book of Matthew, chapter 24, speaks of the elect that is under the four winds of heaven. And it continues throughout the Bible, speaking about Israelites being scattered. Unfortunately, many people fail to understand that Israel's scattering didn't start in 1492 or the 1600s. It didn't even start with 70 AD. It started long before that. As a matter of fact, it started right during the time of Joshua, bringing Hebrews into the land of promise. When you take some careful time to examine the scriptures, you're going to find that there were other nations, the Canaanites, that took Israelites into captivity from a very early stage. One of the things that people fail to understand is that, as with the first argument, Sephardic Jews are not our people. They trafficked and enslaved black Hebrews. They fail to understand that there's also the issue of brothers selling brothers in the scriptures, in the Torah. We also, again, for the second argument, Sephardic Jews were never slaves nor served under the nations. Well, there's so much proof to show that those who live in those Latin countries, Spain, Portugal, and such like, lived in places called ghettos. As a matter of fact, the term ghetto was first coined in those regions, okay? And when you look into history, you'll see that they couldn't operate without permission. There were certain times that they had a little bit of strength during the time of when the Moors, Islam, was in full control over most of Europe. We find that those Hebrews who lived in that part of the world had some power, some limited power, okay? No different from Hebrews who found favor during the time of Pharaoh and Joseph. So we must always have understanding and balance in everything that we do. I find that it's so difficult to really teach in these times because you have to almost prepare meals for those that are toothless, those that are blind, those that can't taste. You have to prepare meals accordingly so you can win the satisfaction of everyone. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You can't please everyone. And sometimes people make comments, and it makes no sense to even respond to the comments because all you're doing is just chasing a shadow, chasing the wind. And it's just best to teach and just keep it moving. So all I'm going to do is do my best to present just some information because there's so much, I always say, there's so much information. I could take a whole week just staying here and just talking and reading books and putting up charts and slides and all kinds of stuff. And even at the end of the day, some Hebrews will say, okay, I see it, but I don't accept it. Well, for those who have an ear to hear and eyes to see and patience to learn and so forth, you're going to get it, and the Most High will open up your understanding and bless you. I realize that Moses was an example of many other situations that would occur amongst teachers with the stiff-neckedness of Israelites and the murmuring and the complaints and everything else that makes them uneasy. I know that Moses was a perfect example of that, and this is going to happen even during the time of our Messiah, even during his time. This is why in the book of Psalms, chapter 2, it says, with a rod of iron he shall rule, with a rod of iron. There's a reason for that. It doesn't say with a feather duster or something. Rod of iron. So let's go right into our studies. So with that roadblock, having the arguments where a lot of people says, no, that's not the case. This is this, and this is what I believe, and that's it. Forget about what you're talking about. You're crazy. You're bringing up all kinds of things that is not right. I used to like to listen to you, but now you're talking about this stuff. I don't want to hear you anymore. Well, with those that have that roadblock or puts up that roadblock, the question is, where do we actually begin? Where do we start our search? What do we do? I mean, if Israelites were taken into captivity amongst the nations from the time of Joshua, from that point going up throughout history, I'm sure, Mishpachah, that when they lived around those people and intermarried with them, and time went on and they serve other gods and then raise children, eventually Israelites are going to take up both the phenotypes, the religions, the practices, the mindsets, and all those different things of those nations. It doesn't mean to say that our Elohim has forgotten Israel, that he doesn't know where to find Israel. The problem is that we are using our eyes and not the Spirit of the Most High. That's the problem. We're letting our eyes deceive us. We're letting our own controlled views and differences obstruct the real view that our Elohim wants us to see. And that's very difficult to really try to bring things out to people who refuse to open up just a little bit, just a little bit. But we're going to take a look at Joseph for a moment. I'm going to take a prophetic look at the book of Genesis, chapter 37. I'm going to read from verses 25, and I'm sure that many of you all have read this before, and I've spoken on this, maybe bits and pieces, but I want to go over this just take another swipe at it, and see what we can glean. Hopefully, we can glean something. So we're going to use Joseph's enslavement as to build, so we can go into some of the historic content and see exactly how prophecy can be right before your eyes, but because of just certain things happening within your mind, is preventing you from really seeing and understanding certain things. And for many of our people who have used Deuteronomy 28 specifically for a template of understanding, that's actually very good. Deuteronomy chapter 28, as bright a light as it is, sometimes we can still find darkness even when the light is very bright with certain Hebrews. Because even though let me put it this way, bright lights can also blind. Sometimes the light is so bright that it prevents you from really seeing what you need to see. So while Deuteronomy 28 is a great template, sometimes it is too bright. It blocks you from actually seeing anything. So hopefully we can be able to dim the lights so you can see just a little better, even the curses that's found in Deuteronomy 28. So let's look at, let's take a look. Let's see here. All right, so let's take a look at Genesis 37. We'll pick it up at verses 25. And what we're going to look at, let's do the mic check.
Shalom.
Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is look at Joseph's situation in terms of stages of representing the exile of Israel. Okay, we're going to look at Joseph's situation as a template of future captivities, okay? And hopefully, I'm going to try my best to make it as clear as possible. All right? So there's a first stage, which is number one. Joseph went into the hands of the Arabs, okay? So we're going to use the scriptures and as a map. And this map will help us to see what happened back in the 1400s, 1600s, and such like. You see the same pattern, okay? So let's start. Genesis 37 and verses 25. Let's go ahead and read.
And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, with the camels bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt.
All right, so let's pause for a moment. Now, you can read before that. This is the event where Joseph's brothers got together. Okay, it was 10 of them that got together. Joseph is 11, and then Benjamin is 12. So the 10 brothers got together and decided that they wanted to get rid of Joseph. So they got together. When they sat down to eat the bread, they saw the Ishmaelites coming around, and I think by now many of us would know that the Ishmaelites are from the seed of Ishmael, who is the father of the Arab nations. Okay, the Arab nations. Now, I don't want to go into all the details about Ishmaelites and stuff like that, because yes, Esau, some of his seed married Ishmaelites. Okay, some Hebrews married Ishmaelites likewise. Okay, so and some of Esau's seed went to Europe. Okay, so we're not even dealing with all that. We just want to focus and stay in the room and stay focused to what I'm presenting here. So notice that the brothers saw a company of Ishmaelites and they were going to Egypt. And everyone should know by now, Egypt is also known as Mizraim. Mizraim is also the seed of Ham, which the world knows as the people of dark complexion. Okay, we call them Hamites. Today, the world is calling them Africans. Okay, so you have the Ishmaelites and you have the Africans or Hamites. Okay, keep that in mind. Let's read verse 26 now.
And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood?
Mm-hmm.
Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren were content.
The first selling of our people wasn't by the hands of the Arabs. It wasn't by the hands of the Egyptians. It was by our own hands. When you sell someone, that person becomes property and become what? A slave. So Hebrews began selling a Hebrew to Arabs. That's the first thing you got to keep in mind. Let not our hand be upon him. So we didn't want to kill him. We just got rid of him. And he says, for he is our brother and our flesh. First point, Hebrews sold Hebrews. Let's start from the ground and work our way up, okay? Let's read verses 28.
Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt.
Midian was also one of the seed of Abraham. They were also considered to be mixed up with the Ishmaelites. You can call them the United Arab Emirates or United Arabs or the Arab nations. All right. So, and Midian came from Abraham's other wife, which is who? Keturah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Midianites came, they lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for what? 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was sold to the Ishmaelites, again, Arabs. Now, we're going to go to Exodus 21 and verses 2. And let us see what the Bible says. We're going to come back to Genesis, but I just want to interject. Because even when we went into Egypt the first time and we became slaves, we also became a nation in Egypt. In the book of Exodus chapter 20, it speaks about the Most High giving us the ketubah, the Torah, the instructions. And when he began speaking all these words, he didn't stop speaking all these words until chapter 24, the first part of that. You can say the end of 23. So some people will read Exodus 20 and they will stop at the last verse or verses 17 and say, oh, you see, that's the 10 Commandments. That's it. We're done. But the Most High never stopped speaking. The people of Israel couldn't bear all the sound effects, the lightning, the thunder, all that stuff. And they told Moses, we're going to move away, otherwise we're going to die. And you deal with the Most High, And then when you're done dealing with the Most High, you can talk to us. And Moses, of course, wrote the words down, what the Most High said, and gave it to them in a book. But when we go to Exodus 21, where the Most High is still speaking, this is what he said, even to a nation of people who just recently came out of slavery. Let's read verses 2. Exodus 21 and verses 2. Let's start at verses 1.
Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy an Hebrew servant.
If you do what?
If you buy a Hebrew servant.
If you decide to buy a Hebrew servant. I don't think Hebrews are walking around saying, please buy me. It's a condition that has caused them to be put in a situation to be bought and sold. Go ahead and read.
6 years he shall serve. And in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing.
Okay, so some of you all would say, well, that was only just servitude for a short time. That's not like a true slave. Well, let's go to Jeremiah 34. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up on the screen so everyone can see it. Let me shrink this down just a little bit. Let me get Jeremiah chapter 34. And we're going to read verses 8. Verses 8 to verses 20. And I want everyone to pay close attention to why the southern kingdom went into captivity, because they broke the simple instructions that our king gave to us. So let's start at verses 8. Go ahead and read. 34 and verses 8.
This is the word that came unto Jeremiah from Yahuwah. After that the king Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people which were at Jerusalem to proclaim liberty unto them, that every man should let his manservant and every man his maidservant, being an Hebrew or an Hebrewess, go free.
Go free. Read.
That none should serve himself of them, to wit of a Jew his brother. Now when all the princes and all the people which had entered into the covenant heard that every one should let his manservant and every one his maidservant go free, that none should serve themselves of them anymore, then they obeyed and let them go.
So when the message went out to remember the covenant, to set your people free, that they're only supposed to serve for a certain time, they said, okay, yeah, you're right, and then set them free. But look what happened, verses 11.
But afterward they turned and caused the servants and the handmaids whom they had let go free to return, and brought them into subjection for servants and for handmaids.
What do you call that? Slavery. That's slavery. That's Hebrews selling Hebrews into slavery. Okay, read on.
Therefore the word of Yahuwah came to Jeremiah from Yah, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondmen, saying, at the end of 7 years.
We just read that, didn't we? Exodus 21, read.
Yes. At the end of 7 years, let he go every man his brother and Hebrew, which have been sold unto thee, and when he have served thee 6 years, thou shalt let him go free from thee. But your fathers hearken not unto me, neither incline their ear.
Read.
And ye were now turned and had done right in my sight, in proclaiming liberty every man to his neighbor, and you had made a covenant before me in the house which is called by my name.
So the Most High told Jeremiah to speak these words. It says, you did right. You did the right thing by letting Hebrews go. Okay, when the time was up. But verse 16, let's see what it says.
But you turned and polluted my name.
This is how the Most High's name is polluted, when we don't keep his commandments. Read.
and cause every man his servant and every man his handmaid, whom he had set at liberty at their pleasure, to return, and brought them into subjection to be unto you for servants and for handmaids.
Read.
Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah, you have not hearkened unto me.
You didn't listen to me.
In proclaiming liberty, every one to his brother, and every man his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, saith Yah, to the sword, to the pestilence.
This is the kind of liberty we were going to get. Swords, pestilence, go ahead.
And to the famine.
And famine.
And I will make you to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Diaspora, dispersed. You see that? Let's continue on.
And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, which have not performed the words of the covenant which they had made before me, when they cut the calf in twain and passed between the parts
This is how a covenant is made. There's always a cutting, bloodshed and a cutting. And then you walk between the pieces and you say, whatever has been done to this animal, if I break this oath and this covenant, let it be done to me. Read on.
The princes of Judah and the princes of Jerusalem, the eunuchs and the priests and all the people of the land, which pass between the parts of the calf, I will even give them into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of them that seek their life. And their dead bodies shall be for meat unto the fowls of the heaven and to the beasts of the earth.
All right, that's all we need. So this is just a little bit of proof to show that Hebrews did in fact sell other Hebrews. All right, let's continue with Joseph. Let's continue to our next slide. Now we're going to look at a prophetic, this exchange as something prophetic that's unfolding. Let's read verses 29, Genesis 37 and verses 29. Genesis 37 verses 29 to 33.
29. And Reuben returned unto the pit. And behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren and said, the child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood.
Read.
And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast have devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces.
So this is a prophetic event that has taken place here. What we're looking at, Mishpachah, is there's a transition between the goat and Joseph. They killed a kid of the goats, not the sheep, but they killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood. So you got the blood, you have a goat, and such like. Then you also have a coat of many colors. I've always said that the coat of many colors represents Joseph being mixed among the nations and such like. Hebrews who are going to be mixed so much that you're not going to be able to identify that that's your brethren. Isn't that what happened to Joseph when he was covered up with all that bling and makeup and all kinds of stuff? Did the brothers recognize him? No, they didn't. It so happened it was 10 brothers who sold him into captivity. And Joseph himself, through his sons Ephraim, Manasseh, but Ephraim was the head, Ephraim took up the identity of his father Joseph, bore that title as the house of Joseph, which we're going to look into shortly. In other words, Ephraim, Joseph, the reason why Joseph went into slavery, as he said himself, was to save his brethren. So Joseph was sacrificed to some degree to the salvation of the 10. In other words, Joseph represents the 10. The 10 was scattered into the nations. Okay? One had to give up the life for the salvation of the others. Notice it says, an evil beast had devoured him, rent his clothes into pieces. The evil beast also prophetically is speaking about what has happened to our people by the nations. All right? And when a beast devours someone, you can't find a trace of them. That's why they couldn't find a trace to bring home, maybe a leg of Joseph, accordingly, because we know it was a setup, but they didn't have anything to bring home. All it can bring is his clothing and the stain of blood that's on it. So where's Joseph? Where's the proof? All you have is a coat of many colors. That's the only evidence, and stained blood. Now let's pause for a moment. Joseph's wife was Egyptian. That's correct.
Yeah, so there was not, you know what I'm saying to you? They already started to mingle with the other nations already from there.
Let's turn to the book of Hosea. And we're going to read some prophetical connections here. Hosea chapter 7. And we're going to read verses 8 to 9. Hosea chapter 7, verses 8 to verses 9. And then we'll skip on over to the next chapter. Go ahead and read.
Ephraim, he have mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned.
He mixed himself amongst the people. When you mix yourself among the people at a very long time, and you are a servant among the people, the Most High prophesied that we are going to be servants among the nations. But yet we have the school of thought by very intellectual Hebrews that says, well, we had our own communities. We were among those nations, but we never integrated or intermingled with other people. We stayed to ourselves.
Because the Bible says so. The Bible actually said that.
So in other words, when we got to all these nations, there was never a time that we assimilated into these nations. We always remain our dark complexion, and our features were always kept without any type of change. That's what the intelligent Hebrews say. But when you go among nations and you're mixed, it takes on a whole different thing. Even the reality of today's time, when Hebrews marry Gentiles, the children, the first generations, is so changed that if that child goes to back to the nativity of one of the Gentile parent and married someone over there, that child will actually look like the heathen, even if that child is Hebrew. Okay, we have talked about this many times, but you know, I know it's a little hard to swallow because we're dealing with our own prejudices and we're dealing with our own situations, you know, blocks, mind blocks, or whatever. Let's read verses 9. Verses 9.
Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not.
See, he doesn't even know what's happening to himself. Let's go to his strength is what? Say it again.
His seed.
His seed.
He's mingled.
He's mingled. Well, let's go to chapter 8. And let's read verses 8. Chapter 8 and verses 8.
Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure.
A vessel that is not a vessel of honor. Disgraceful vessel. That's like the vessel that the Bible speaks about, I think is in Romans 9, of Esau being a vessel that was what? Dishonor. And Israel as being a vessel of honor. But when you're mixed among the nations, you have taken on the curses of those nations, the gods of those nations. Everything about you is like those nations. But the Most High has not forgotten where you are. He still knows where Israelites are scattered. Okay? Now, it says, Israel is swallowed up. Genesis 37 and 33. And evil beasts have devoured him. Let's go to chapter 9, verses 3. Chapter 9, verses 3. Chapter 9, verses 3. Go ahead and read.
They shall not dwell in Yahuwah's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria.
Well, when we look at the real historical events, we don't see Ephraim returning back to Israel and staying in Israel, not Israel, Egypt, and staying in Assyria either. Assyria is the country where the city of Nineveh is located. Okay, but the 10 tribes were there for a short time. You can read the book of Jonah, you can read the book of Tobit, and it talks about the 10 tribes of Israel. In particularly, Naphtali was in Nineveh, which we'll cover just a little bit of that too. But Ephraim did not return and stay in Egypt. It's talking about the whole world, okay? The whole world as being a place of servitude. Let's go to verses 17. Skip on to verses 17.
My Elohim will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him. And they shall be wanderers among the nations.
This is talking about Ephraim. So you can't attach it and say, well, it's just Egypt or it's Assyria. The Bible sums it up, verse 17. Most High will cast them away because they did not listen to him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. Wanderers amongst the nations, plural. All right? Let's move ahead. Let's look at a prophetic look about this goat situation. We know of a ram was substituted for Isaac, because everyone knows about Abraham taking Isaac in Mount Moriah. And when he got there, the Most High says, okay, I know you love me. Take this ram over here in the place of your son. Now, notice that with Joseph, a kid of the goats, was used in the place of killing Joseph. Instead of killing, they said, we don't want to kill our brother. We're going to sell him. But they killed a goat instead. This is a substitution. This substitution is prophetic, Mishpachah. There are two Hebrew definitions for goat. The Strong's as, which is H5810, a she-goat, but masculine and plural, which also is used referring to a goat or kid and so forth. But the one that I really want to touch on is the second one, because there are many definitions, but this is the one that I really want to touch on, which is 8163, Sair. Sair means shaggy, as a he-goat, a fawn, a devil, a goat, hairy, kid, rough, satyr. So it's as if when you look at the substitution, because we know that sheep have woolly hair, goats don't have woolly hair, okay? So if they substituted this goat in the place of Joseph, it's as if they're, prophetically speaking, certain things about Joseph is going to change. What you think Joseph is going to look like is not what you think. How he's going to be is going to be different. You're not going to recognize him. And the sheep and the goat is not going to really dwell together that much. They're going to have a button of ideas and heads and such like. But he's still dealing with a Hebrew. It's only a temporary exchange, okay? Let's move on. Let me continue on. So this Joseph is going to appear as a Gentile, and the Bible have used, for example, with Esau. Let's look at this. Strong's 8163, Sair, devil, goat, hairy, kid, rough, satyr. A goat or satyr has always been associated with Esau or Edom. The people who grew to rule Europe, you can read the book of Jasher, which speaks about Zepho that went to Cyprus area, southern Italy. Gradually, he became the king of Italy. He ruled it for many years, and the story continued and so forth. There's some legends. We show the legends that when you read some of these historical legends and stuff, it speaks about certain things happening. And then when you match it up with the book of Jasher, you can see how the legends are true. All right. Now, Genesis chapter 27. Yes. Everyone is in the class. I'm not sure what she's talking about. Anyone with questions and stuff or comments, hold it for the last, okay? Just make a note. Let me go through this presentation because I got a lot of stuff to cover. All right, so just hold on everything. And let Sister Abigail know that she probably is in the wrong room or something. Okay. All right, Genesis 27 and verses 11. This is what it says. And Yaakov said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man. Notice the word hairy, and the Hebrew word that is used here is the same word for satyr or goat or devil. 8163. Esau, my brother, is a devil, a goat, or he's hairy man, and I'm a smooth man. Okay, so we have this small definition or the small description or prophetical insight about the word goat. So now let's continue on. The book of Leviticus, chapter 16, verses 8. Let's read that real quick. And let us look at a little bit more connections with this goat situation. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, it speaks of Azazel, or the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and two goats being brought to the forefront. One goat is kept back close and sacrificed, and the other one is taken into a far country or into the wilderness. Let's read verses 8. I'm going to skip on down to verses 21.
And Aaron shall cast lots upon the two goats.
That's the high priest.
One lot for Yahuwah, and the other lot for the scapegoat.
One lot, which prophetically speaking, we can say is symbolic of Judah because it stayed close to home. There are many different layers of study that I can bring on this, but I'm going to give you another addition to that layer, okay? One side, the one lot that is for the Most High, that is basically the tribe of Judah. The other lot for the scapegoat, that's the one that's taken to the wilderness. That also represents Ephraim or Joseph, okay? Let's skip on down, verses 21.
And Aaron shall bring the two goats upon which Yahuwah's lot fell, and offer him for a sin offering.
Is that 21?
Oh, I'm sorry. 21. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat, and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions, in all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat.
Let's pause for a moment. So whatever is happening to Israel, that thing now is transferred over to the goat, so that the goat becomes Israel. Right? Israel is wicked like goats, but the Most High is not going to destroy Israel. So he substituted something in the place of Israel, which is a goat, and put the behavior, the crimes, the attitudes, the mindset on the goat. Let's continue on. On the head of the goat, read, and
shall send him away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness.
A fit man into the wilderness. strong man, into drive him away into the wilderness so he can't come back home. The nations were considered to be a strong man, mishpachah. So you got two goats, one sent away and the other stayed. We talked about that. Let's move ahead. Let's look at the second stage. So we had the Hebrews brothers selling their own brethren, first of all, into slavery. Then we have the Arabs now selling the this Hebrew, which represents the 10 tribes or represents Israel, the northern kingdom, into captivity to the Hamites. So this is the second stage. Let's read Genesis 37 and 34.
And Jacob
Okay, 1 second. It says that the screen is not showing up. Give me 1 second. I don't know. Sometimes I think these people, the programs and stuff, you upgrade your you update your computer and all of a sudden everything goes awry. All right, can everyone see it now? Can it be seen? Me a yes, no? Okay, good. All right, great. Okay, so let's continue. Genesis chapter 37, verses 33. Read 34, sorry.
And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Okay, so now we're seeing that Joseph is now in the hands of the Hamites. Okay, now remember I said there were two goats. When we look at the diaspora, because let's put the 10 tribes to the side for a moment, and let's talk about the destruction of Jerusalem. The Bible says in Hosea that when I punish the first woman to set an example, the second woman, which represents the southern kingdom, the first one was the 10 tribes or the northern kingdom. The second woman was the southern kingdom. It says, when I punished the first kingdom, the 10 tribes, I was trying to set an example so that the southern kingdom of Judah will not try to go after and do the same type of whoredom as the northern kingdom. But instead, she went and did worse. Okay, so in other words, now Judah has become like a goat. So when you see the destruction of Jerusalem, you find that many Hebrews went into Arab countries and south into Africa. Okay, when they stayed there for a while, certain things happened, which we'll cover again. But I'm just going to say it real quick. We find that we went into the hands of the Arabs, we became slaves. We ended up in the hands of, from there to the Hamites, who became slaves. And then from there, we were given over to the Gentiles. Notice the pattern, the same structure, okay? The way everything happened, the sequence of events. All right. So we find with Joseph, number one, his identity or his coat was removed. I'm looking at the far right. His identity or his coat was removed. So you don't know who he is. You don't recognize him. He was sold by brothers to Arabs. Sold by the Arabs to Hamites. The red goat's blood that covered him, which is now he's covered with this red blood, he becomes as if he's like Edom. Lost his identity and given up for dead. So now in the mind of his other brethren, no one knows what has happened to him. As far as they're concerned, he's dead.
right? Because the intention that they had in their heart was to kill him, but they couldn't carry it out. And in the mind of Jacob, Joseph is dead. Then later on, when the famine took place, there was a struggle to reconnect again. There was that struggle to reconnect again. As a matter of fact, we find that Joseph, to teach them a lesson, took Simeon, is that correct? And put him where? Into prison. Isn't that a brother also enslaving another brother, even if it's temporary? Keep that in mind, Mishpachah. Because while Joseph had the power, while he had the power of rulership, he had the opportunity to now put the others that do not recognize him into captivity. He put all of them in prison, right? He let the others go and he kept one. That's correct. So then after all of these back and forth stuff, then there was a revelation. Joseph revealed himself. I am your brother. And whatever happened, I forgive you. That's the past. But this is the hand of the Most High that allowed these things to happen for a reason. And after all these things happened, there was a restoration. Now that's the chain of events. Where you see the blue, it's happening from 1 to 7. So now let's look over at the red side. We find the identity of the coat was removed. That's when our people were what? In this captivity, lost identity. We were sold by the Arabs. Is that correct? Historically speaking, they were the ones who started to enslave us. Back in 1100s, 1200s, 1300s, 1400s. You just look at when the Muslims, when Muhammad rose up in power, he was conquering in the world. Hebrews who were in their lands and northern part of Africa, we had to flee even further into Africa. And Muhammad was sweeping everybody up. Okay, so we got caught up. And after the Arabs had us, then the Hamites took us and enslaved us, sold us off. We were stripped of our identity. The names that we had, if some of y'all can check the slave ships, the manifesto, you'll see there's a lot of Hebrew names in there. A lot of Hebrew names. Okay. We lost, all of that was taken away from us. You probably have seen the movie Roots, that now people are actually backtracking and saying, well, that movie was falsified and the information was wrong, blah, blah, blah. But you get at least you get the essence how to beat that young captive into submission, that he no longer identified with his name. He had a new name, okay? So our identity was lost, and then we were eaten up. Our strength was taken from us right here in this land of captivity in the western side of the world. All the works of our hands were being eaten up by this wild beast. The Bible says that by a people who language you don't even understand. So when you don't understand someone's language, it's as if you're speaking to an animal, a wild beast. You can't, there's no communication there. No mercy. They treated us really with hard rigor. Okay, no compassion. At least with the Arabs at one point, we served as doctors, we served as scribes, we served as treasurers, you name it. We served, doing many different things. They had plenty of use for us over there. Then all of a sudden, we find that we're in a time right now where we're struggling to reconnect, because you have Hebrews that are coming in contact with other Hebrews, and we're looking at them and we're like, no, that's an Egyptian. That's a heathen. That's a heathen. That's not our brother. That's not, no. That could never be, he could never be a Hebrew. He speaks a different language. And everything else, just the evidence just shows what you see, but you're not looking with prophetic, you're not looking with the eyes of the Most High. You're looking from the side of the flesh. And the problem is every time we utilize our spirit or our fleshly mindset, we can never understand the scriptures. But then there's going to be a time when everything is revealed, and then we're going to start to restore. And I hope that this class will help us to see beyond these prophetic stuff and understand that these things happen for a reason. I put a couple notes. Joseph was never accepted as a brother, but it was treated as a Gentile. We looked at him before as a prodigal son. When the prodigal son came back home, his mindset was, I'm not going to come with the mindset of a brother or a son. I'm going to come back as a heathen looking for employment, looking for a job, a servant. And when the father saw him, he was like, welcome back home. He killed a calf. He put a ring upon his hand, put a robe on him. In other words, the coat that was stained and dirty, the father put a fresh coat on him, restored Joseph back to who he was, his rightful place, put him back up as a prince. And the son was upset. It's like, you can show that there was a problem between the two, vexation between the two. One son didn't like the other one. The son says, I've always been with you, father. I've always been Hebrew. This other young man has never been a Hebrew. He left. He gave up everything. He wanted the birthright. In other words, he wished you dead. He was cut off. Now he's back and you give him a calf. You treat him like a king. Second point, Joseph the Gentile got power to enslave his brothers. I talked about that. All of these things, brethren, is a way for us to look what's happening in this diaspora. Joseph was not in the land of promise. He had a little bit of power, but he was still where? In Egypt, in bondage, in captivity. The brethren who left because of a famine was also placed in a situation, and we out of that captivity, we grew as a nation. But we recognized each other while we were all together in the captivity. It wasn't part of the tribe leaving Egypt and going off and doing their own thing. Everyone was in the same boat together. And that's where we are today. And this is where we're going to get to know and see each other and recognize it's nothing to do with the absolute point of it's all about skin color. Because if you take that route, Mishpachah, you will never see the true understanding of what this is all about. Okay? Joseph was also regarded as a leper, according to the Hebraic mindset by our sages. The leper who has now returned, who's now clean again. The outcast is now returned. Let's continue on. So this is a strange prophecy. You have Ephraim, which is the 10 tribes / Israel, went into Assyria, which is also known as Nineveh. Let's go to Hosea chapter 11. Let's read verses 1 to 5. Hosea chapter 11. I'm going to read verses 1 to 5. Just to show you, we're transitioning to introduce Spain, okay, Hispaniola, so we can get a better understanding of how Israelites ended up in that neck of the woods. Okay, and we're going to look at it from Judah's perspective and other perspectives. Okay, now let's take a look. Hosea 11 and verses 1. Let's read. It's prophecy.
When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt.
He called my son out of Egypt. Read.
And they called them, so they went from them. They sacrificed unto Baalim and burnt incense to graven images. I taught Ephraim also to go, taking them by their arms, but they knew not that I healed them.
Mm-hmm.
I drew them with cords of a man, with bonds of love, and I was to them as they that take off the yoke on their jaws,
Mm-hmm.
and I laid meat unto them.
You know, when you had back in slavery days, they had this yoke, this iron thing that stopped the slaves from eating. And if you want to eat, you have to work. And then when the time has come to feed you, then they take that iron thing off of your mouth. Okay? So when we're in bondage, that means we were restricted. We couldn't have the liberty to do as we pleased. And the Most High took us from captivity and made us a people. But right now he's focusing upon Ephraim. So let's read on.
He shall not return into the land of Egypt, but the Assyrian shall be his king.
Notice it says the Assyrian shall be his king. This is prophecy because it's going to connect to Jonah. Read.
Because they refused to return.
That's all we need. So now let's go to Jonah 3, 4 to verses 6. So these Hebrews in the northern kingdom, also known as Ephraim, did not want to return and repent. Okay. Let's go and read verses 4 to verses 6.
Jonah 3.
Yep.
4 to 6.
That's correct.
And Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And he cried and said, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
So the people of Nineveh believed Yahuwah and proclaim a fast, and put on sackcloth from the greatest of them even to the least of them.
Verses 6.
For the word came unto the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne, and he laid his robe from him, and covered him with sackcloth, and sat in ashes.
Notice it says the king of Nineveh arose, and he also covered himself with sackcloth and ashes. But remember when Jonah, let me go there real quick. When Jonah was sent to go to Nineveh, Jonah decided to go somewhere else. But you remember that it mentions about Tarshish. Okay, let's get that. Chapter 1, right? Let's go there real quick. Verses 3, Jonah 1 and 3.
But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of Yah, and went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish.
Mm-hmm.
So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of Yahuwah.
Now, it's interesting that Jonah wanted to go to Tarshish, but before we even go further, we're going to go to the book of Tobit, and just to briefly make a connection, because in the book of Hosea, it speaks about the Assyrian king. As a matter of fact, let me go back real quick. Let's go back. Hosea 11 and verses 5. It says, But he shall not return into the land of Egypt, but the Assyrian shall be his king. The Assyrian shall be his king. We read that Jonah was told to go to Nineveh, but when he got there, the king of Nineveh heard the news, and everyone was thinking from churchianity that, well, you know, the message of the Most High, we can see how the heathen repented, but they don't give you the proper understanding to know why did Jonah refuse to go to Nineveh, and who exactly repented there. Yes, the Assyrian king had repented, but the reason is because certain people were given into his hands. Same way how Nebuchadnezzar had repented, because there were certain people who were given into his hands also. Pharaoh had control over the Hebrews, but he didn't repent. Certain things happened. They were destroyed. All of them were destroyed. Okay? But let's go to, like I said, Tobit. Let me get it up on the screen. Tobit, we're going to read chapter 1. We've read this before, but we want to make sure that we all connect, okay? So now let's read verses 1. Start from there.
The book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, the son of Arnanil, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabriel, of the seed of Asiel, of the tribe of Naphtali.
So Tobit was from the tribe of Naphtali. Okay, read.
Who in the time of Enesiar, king of Assyria.
Is he the king of Assyria?
Mhm.
All right, read.
Was led captive out of this
Tisbe.
out of Tisbe, which is at the right hand of the city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher.
Above Asher.
Asher.
Okay. Now let's read verses 3.
I, Tobit, had walked all the days of my life in the way of truth and justice. And I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation, who came with me to Nineveh.
Who came with me to where?
To Nineveh.
Nineveh. Right? So when Jonah went to Nineveh, guess who was there? The tribes of Israel. The 10 tribes of Israel. Ephraim. Because the 10 tribes were under the umbrella of Ephraim. He was the head in charge of the 10 tribes. Judah was in charge of the rest. Okay, read on. Into the land of the Assyrians. Let's skip on down to verse.
To Nineveh, into the land of the Syrians.
Let's skip on down to verses 5 real quick.
Now all the tribes which together revolted, and the house of my father Naphtali sacrificed unto the heifer Baal.
Remember we read that in Hosea? Okay, let's continue on.
But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feast, as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and 10th of increase, which that with that which was first shown.
All right, let's skip that. Let's go verses 10. Let's read verses 10.
And when we were carried away captive to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did eat of the bread of the Gentiles.
Did eat of the bread of the Gentiles. This is what happened to Ephraim. They'll eat their defiled bread among the nations. Okay? So let us leave that. I want to show you all the prophecy that Jonah was actually there. If you all don't believe me, let's see what the Bible says. Okay, let's show that this is a Hebrew book from the beginning to end. We're going to go to Tobit 14. Tobit 14. We're going to come back to Tarshish. All right. Tobit 14, and we'll pick it up at verses 4. So the old man was about to die, and he was giving some advice to his son. He says, listen, I'm old. I'm getting ready to die. Verses 4.
Go into Media, my son.
So now he's telling his son to flee to Media.
For I surely believe those things which Jonah, the prophet, spake of Nineveh.
So they were there. When Jonah came, the message came to the tribes of Israel that were in Nineveh. Now the question is, why did Jonah flee in the opposite direction? Why was he going to Tarshish? Let me tell you the reason why. Because again, there was vexation between the two houses of Israel. The southern kingdom didn't care for the northern kingdom. They hated each other. They fought against each other. So Jonah had a dislike for the 10 tribes. In other words, he was saying they deserve whatever they got coming to them, whatever they were going through, they deserve that. Let them suffer the consequences for Baal worship. So we, the righteous ones, who's like the brother of the prodigal son, I never did anything wrong. We were always good, lovely. We did exactly what you said. You know, they kind of behave arrogant. So Jonah wanted to take a ship to go to Tarshish. Tarshish had a Hebrew community over there, especially during the time of Solomon, when Solomon had ships traveling all over the place. bringing apes and peacocks and all kinds of stuff. Okay? So let's read. Read verses 4 again.
Go into Media, my son, for I surely believe those things which Jonah the prophet spake of Nineveh, that it shall be overthrown, and that for a time peace shall rather be in Media, and that our brethren shall lie scattered in the earth from that good land.
From that good land, not in that good land. Read.
And Jerusalem shall be desolate, and the house of Yah in it shall be burnt, and shall be desolate for a time.
Read on.
And that again Yah will have mercy on them, and bring them again into the land, where they shall build a temple, but not like to the first, until the time of that age be fulfilled.
Till the time of the Gentiles is over. Read.
Yes. And afterward they shall return from all the places of their captivity.
They're going to return from every place of their captivity. Read.
And build up Jerusalem gloriously. And the house of Elohim shall be built in it forever with a glorious building, as the prophet have spoken thereof.
Has this happened yet?
No.
So even when the southern kingdom, Judah, returned from Persia with Ezra and Nehemiah, and they rebuild the temple, that's destroyed already, right?
Yes.
That's gone.
Yeah.
So the old man was prophesying about future, okay?
Because remember what he said, that the northern kingdom was never going to return to the land until that time.
Until that time. So let's read on to verses 7. No, read on to verses 8. I'm sorry.
And all nations shall turn and fear Yahuwah Elohim truly, and shall bury their idols. So shall all nations praise Yah, and his people shall confess Yahuwah, and Yahuwah shall exalt his people, and all those which love Yah Elohim in truth and justice shall rejoice, showing mercy to our brethren.
Read.
And now, my son, depart out of Nineveh, because that those things which the prophet Jonah spake shall surely come to pass.
All right, that's all we need from that. So we can see the bridge that has been broken in churchianity, making us believe Jonah went to heathen. Jonah went to the head heathen who was in charge over the Hebrews, so that the message can go that they need to repent. All right, there's much more to that, but I don't want to stay long on that. So this is the reason why Jonah refused and went to Tarshish. Now, when you look up the word Tarshish, they put up a couple things. It says the site unknown, but perhaps in Cyprus or what? Spain. Cyprus or Spain. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's go to Obadiah chapter 20. Not chapter 20, verses 20. There's only one chapter. Obadiah, verses 20. Book of Obadiah, verses 20. When you get it, just go ahead and read.
And the captivity of the host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath. And the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the city of the south.
Notice it says, and the captivity of Jerusalem, that's Judah, which is located in Zarephath. So Jonah wasn't going to an outpost of the 10 tribes in Spain. He went to an outpost of Jews, the southern kingdom that was in Spain. Because it's saying those of the captivity, those that are enslaved in that part of the world, diaspora, they're going to possess the cities of the south. That's Judah's territory. Okay. Now, according to the Targum of Yonatan, the Targum is an Aramaic version of the Torah, which gives us some other views or insights into prophetic and symbolic aspects of the Torah. The Targum of Yonatan identifies with Spain, okay? So they look at Sarafat, and it says Sarafat is definitely Spain. Hence, Spanish Jews are called Sephardim. Okay, let's skip on down here. It says that some have even identified it with Sardis. Now generally accepted view, the now generally accepted view is that which connects it with Sarparda of the Assyrian inscriptions, though whether this be, let me read it again, though whether this is to be located to the east of Assyria or in northern Asia Minor is not clear. So the scholars are not clear if it's over here or it's over there, because there have been so many conquering and ruins and stuff, things can get blurred to some degree. But the weight is heavy on the side of Spain. Okay. All right, let's move ahead. Let's go into it. Well, let's go to the book of Romans 15 and 24. Let's read. There's a reason why when we read the book of Romans 15 and 24, that we find the Apostle Paul, also known as Shaul or also known as Paul, had traveled into Spain. And again, we have this missing bridge making us believe that Paul went to speak to heathen men just out of the blue. That's like me going to Russia and just meeting people and talking to them. They're going to throw me out unless there's a community of people that connects to me. I can go talk to them and they're going to recognize me and we can converse and whatnot. Okay? But you don't just go to a place and then just start talking to people. Okay? The fact that it mentions the way it speaks here lets us know there's a little bit more that we have to investigate. So let's read verses 24 and then verses 28.
Whensoever I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you.
I will come to you.
For I trust to see you in my journey, and to be brought on my way thitherward by you, if first I be somewhat filled with your company.
Now, when I read the book of Acts, I don't see anywhere where any Hebrews went to Spain and set up a church. We don't see that. All we have is a letter, which is marked as the first book by Paul to the Romans. Okay, first letter by Shaul addressing a set of people that's in Spain. But we have no information connecting. Why is he going there? I mean, because he's like one of the last apostles, right? So where's the evidence that we have the other apostles ever going to Spain to do anything? If there was I can understand if there was a church already in Spain because the apostles went there, set something up, then I can understand Paul coming behind and saying, let me write a letter to these brothers at this church found in Andalusia, somewhere in Spain. Okay? But that's not the case. The man is writing a letter because you had a dispersion of Hebrews throughout that whole region, the Mediterranean, parts of southern Europe, in Africa, in Babylon, and things like that, Mishpachah. They knew where the Hebrews were dispersed, okay? And remember when the book of Acts chapter 2 says you had Hebrews from all these different regions come into the feast because Jerusalem was still standing. But once it was destroyed, that was it, okay? Now let's read verses 28.
When therefore I have performed this and have sealed to them this fruit, I will come by you into Spain.
So once again, we have Paul speaking about traveling to Spain. Traveling to Spain. Now let's look at a little bit of history. There's an interesting thing here. There's a place in Spain called Cadiz. I hope I'm pronouncing it Cadiz or Cadiz, Spanish. It's a port in the southwestern part of Spain. It is the capital of the province of Cadiz, one of 8 which make up the autonomous community of Andalusia. Very little remains of the Phoenician language, but numismatic inscriptions record that they knew the site as a gadir or agadir, meaning the wall, compound. Let me skip on down here. Stronghold and so forth. Borrowed by the Berber languages, this became agadir, wall, fortified and such like, which is a common word or used common in North African place names. Common in North African place names. It so happened that there's an Israeli town called Gedera, which shares a similar etymology. Let's read 1 Chronicles 4 and 23 real quick. So you have this town in southwestern Spain that has a unique word that has gone through a little slight change that is connected somehow to Israel. So let's go to 1 Chronicles. Let's see what it says. Take a peek. 1 Chronicles 4 and 23. So I'm just going to put some bits and pieces out, Mishpaka, because there's just so much stuff to talk about and histories of certain things happening, and it'll just make you tired. 4 and 23. Okay. Is that the right one? 23. That's 1 Chronicles 4 and 23. Let's see. 22. Let's see if that's it. It's probably made a mistake on that. No, it's verses 18. I think it's 18. Let's see. Saraf is here in 22. And okay, let's read 18 real quick. It's probably the one.
And his wife Jehudadiah bare Jared, the father of Gedor, and Heber, the father of Soko, and Jecthuel, the father of Zanoah.
Okay, let's leave that. I think it probably, let's see if we can find the other one. Joshua 15 and 36. Sometimes when you're cutting and pasting, you miss the wrong text, looking at the wrong thing. But let me see if we can find this one, 15 and 36. Let's see if that's the one I want to. 15 and 36. Yeah, 15 and 36. Let's get that. So you got these names and stuff. 15 and 36. Okay. Scroll on down. Here we go. Go ahead and read.
And Sharaim, and Aditham, and Gedara.
That's the one.
And Gedorathaim, 14 cities with their villages.
All right. So basically, we can see that that word is also found connected to a particular area in Spain. Okay, so let's move on. Now, in the this author puts out a little bit more information about Spain having Hebrews during the time of Shaul. This is W.P. Bowers, Jewish Communities in Spain in the Time of Paul the Apostle, Journal of Theological Studies, 26-2. This is October 1975, page 396 says, it is not uncommon to meet with the supposition that Paul's plans to visit Spain somehow must have been bound up with the presence of Jewish communities in the peninsula. Recently, for example, E. Kaisman has commented in connection with those plans, and it has some German here, but anyway, it says, but were there Jews in Spain in Paul's day? I should like to approach this question by a comprehensive review of the evidence, both material and literally, for Jewish communities in Roman Spain. So that's all I'm going to read from that. And so you have a glimpse to know that during that time of Shaul, the scholars knew that there were Hebrews who lived in that neck of the woods. And that's the reason why we find Paul just making mention of traveling to that area. All right, so now we're going to take a quick look at some books and passages from different books, excerpts from books, to kind of highlight a few things here. And I'm not going to make too much of it because there's a whole lot of juggling that you got to do when it comes to these authors of books and stuff. But let's take a look, just a glimpse at some of these books. Now, before we go into the books, one of the arguments is about complexion of the Hebrews. Now, I already said many times over, Israelites primarily during the time of the ancient ones, our forefathers, were people of color. When they went into captivity by the different nations, they progressively acquired the phenotypes of those people, those nations, the looks, the hair, different speeches, mind, a way of thinking amongst the Greeks, throughout Asia, throughout different places, even in Africa itself. Okay, you want to say something real quick?
I was gonna say, what about our people? When you read the book of the Torah, it talks about those who had form of leprosy, where all the skin turned all white and they were clean. And we had a lot of them that was like albino people among
That's
our
right.
people too.
Mm-hmm.
So afterwards, when you mingle and stuff, you're not gonna get just jet black all the time. You have a variety, a variation of the colors.
Of colors, that is correct. So you just have some that is stuck on the beginning, not seeing the progression over time, what has happened to our people. And I know it's getting stale to be repeating this over and over, but we have to, because sometimes that's the way it is. Anyway, so what was the complexion of those Jews in Spain? First, let's look at a word used to demonize the Jews in Spain. It's called Marrano. But it's used, Marrano is in the dictionary. It says a Spanish or Portuguese Jew who was converted to Christianity during the late Middle Ages, usually under threat of death or persecution, especially one who continued to adhere to Judaism in secret. Now, there are different schools of thought. Marrano can mean a pig, Marrano can mean a nigger, negro, you name it. There are all different schools of thought behind that. I'm not going to argue. The point is that it's not a name of a Hebrew. Okay, these are names that were given for those that lived in those areas, all right? But let's take a look at some other information, and let's take a look at what the Europeans are saying about the Hebrews during the during the time of the of Europe, when the Moors and such like were there in Europe. Let's take a look at some of these works. This is from a book, Jews in the Early Modern English Imagination, A Scattered Nation, by Dr. Eva Johanna Holmberg. Let's take a look at some of the things here. Let me get my little, my little pointer. Okay. All right, so here goes the reading. Let's see where I want to start. Interestingly, there were quite a few claims of Jews having black or dark skin. Now, before I continue reading, one thing that I noticed is that when Spain was ruled, Portugal, Spain, those places were ruled by the Moors, which were primarily dark people of different shades of color, Arabs, They also had Israelites among them, serving them and working along with them in that part of the world. They brought different technologies, education was brought there, construction of buildings, chemistry, you name it. The Moors brought all of these things to Europe when Europe was basically in darkness. You look at the historical accounts of the structures of these great cathedrals. It's based on the system that the Moors brought into that part of the world. Education, running water flowing up and down, the way everything was set up, agriculture, the guitar, all of that stuff, bullfighting, that stuff came from the Moors. Okay, Anyway, make a long story short, when the Moors finally was declining in power and they started to um, move back into Africa, into Arabia, the Christian Catholic Europeans started to regain control over Spain. And when they started to gain control, there was a whitewashing of history. They went through many places that had images or anything that had a history of people of color ruling Europe, and they started to wipe that information out. And then they would start to work on the books and says, well, the people were not really this color. It was just a derogatory term that was used to apply to the people, but really and truthfully, the people were actually like our complexion and whatnot. They started to play around with books and try to change things. But how come they haven't changed a lot of the statutes? They've changed a lot of them, but how come they didn't get rid of all the statues of the Virgin Mary, of the disciples looking jet black? Why is the Pope still bowing to a black Madonna and kissing the black Madonnas and such like? That's the question. Even all the way up to Russia, okay? And the Moors traveled all the way up there too, Mishpaka, okay? They're finding evidence that even the Vikings had a Quran. Okay, so information is coming out. It's coming out. So the Europeans were trying to cover up that blacks or people of color ruled Europe for about 1,000 years, 800 to almost 1,000 years. Okay, so they started to clean up the house and try to change things around. So let's read. Interestingly, there were quite a few claims of Jews having black or dark skin. The story of Barthema, born 1480, also known as, and I can't even pronounce, but let's try, Vudo Viscus Vertomanus, okay, where the traveler encounters strange Jews inhabiting a mountain near Medina, could be found in Percus, his pilgrims. According to Barthema, these Jews were small of stature, call it pygmies, right? Had small voices like women and were of black color. Let's read this part right here. In the space of 8 days, we came to a mountain which contained a circuit 10 or 12 miles. This is inhabited with Jews, to the number of 5,000 or thereabout. They are very little stature, as the height of 5 or 6 spans, and some much less. They have small voices like women, and of black color, yet some blacker than other. They feed of none other meat than mutton. That's lamb. Okay, they are circumcised and deny not themselves to be Jews. If by any chance Mamethan comes into their land, they slay him alive. At the foot of the mountain, we found a certain hole wherein the rain water was received. By finding this opportunity, we laid 16,000 camels, which thing greatly offended the Jews. They wandered in that mountain, scattered like wild goats or prickets. Yet durst they not come down, partly for fear and partly for hatred against the Mahometans. Now, this word right here is Muhammad. Mohammedanians, or what do we call it? Trying to pronounce the right word. But the Islamic hordes that lived, because Medina is in over in Saudi Arabia, okay? So these are Jews that lived in the mountains, and for fear of the Islamic hordes, kept to themselves. Let's move on to our next slide. Let me see what I want to read here. Let's see. Let's move on. Okay, let's see what it says. It says, this says here, there were many shades of Jews. The darker hue of Jews was also discussed by writers of English origin. Thomas Calvert's opinion was that the Jews who had been expelled from Spain became Moors in Africa, even if they retained their Jewish religion. It is not altogether clear whether he means cultural or climatological assimilation. Okay. So they're not clear as to, well, did these Jews, because of the hot climate, become dark in complexion, or because it just mixed into the people, or whatever the case may be. But they acknowledge that the people who left Spain were people of color, just like the Moors. All right. Mentions that the people called Kaftates, being as black as pitch and of mighty stature, descended of the Jews, okay, are idolaters and most deadly enemies to the Christians. They call them idolaters because they wouldn't follow to the Catholic religion, okay? Let's move on. Let's move on. Next slide. See if you can read. Okay. It mentioned Iberians and other Mediterranean people were darker than Northerners, and the English thought of themselves as belonging to the latter group. As discussed by James Shapiro, both Sir Williams Brereton in 1635 and the Scot Robert Kirk in 1690 present Jewish men as black, right here. You see that? Brereton connects this blackness with insatiable lust for women. Does this sound familiar? And Kirk with their indistinct reasoning. All this in agreement with the prevalent symbolism of blackness in the early modern culture. Okay. It is not clear, however, whether this blackness refers to their skin or to their black hair or darker complexion. So let's move on. Let's move on. The English Sir Williams Brereton visited one Sephardic synagogue in Amsterdam in 1635 and wrote that the Jewish men were mostly what color? Black, and insatiably given unto women. In 1643, Isaac de la Pierre contended that once the Jews converted to Christianity, they will no longer have this dark complexion. They will change faces, and whiteness, the whiteness of their complexion will have the same brightness as, and doesn't say anymore there. An Englishman, John Greenhall, visited a Jews' synagogue in London and wrote a friend about it in 1662, describing the chief ruler, as the rabbi, probably the president or the parnism, that is the head president, as a very rich merchant, a big, black, fierce, and stern man. Y'all see that? These are all excerpts from these books. At the latter end, Greenhall reiterated with ethnographic precision that the 100 or so Jews he saw at the synagogue are all generally black, so that they may be distinguished from Spaniards or native Greeks. For the Jews here had a deeper tincture of more perfect raven black. Here's another note saying that they were all very black men, indistinct in their reasoning as gypsies. And also the term gypsy, some have said it means out of Egypt, or people out of Egypt, and these gypsies, I wonder about them too. Now, some say, well, they're actually from India, but these people have been in ghettos all over the world. They have a certain kind of language. They're demonized as dealing with witchcraft and all kinds of strange stuff. But when you look at gypsies, you type of gypsies in Europe, they have a darker skin complexion than the other peoples. And you can see that. It's very, very clear. Okay. Let's see what else can read from this. Let's move on. Let's go to another slide. So the Jews, let me close this down, make this bigger. The Jews and Blacks in Early Modern World by Jonathan Scorse. This is another book. Let's see what it says. It says the Reverend Samuel Stanhope Smith wrote that the Jews are fair in Britain and Germany, brown in France and in Turkey, swarthy. Anybody who knows the definition will know that swarthy, schwarze in German, means black. Okay, swarthy in Portugal, where to speak Portuguese, and Spain. They say it's olive in Syria and in Chaldea. Tawny, that's also black, or copper colored in Arabia and in Egypt. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Perhaps the best indication that the valences involved in such distinctions also convey metaphysical import is a title of the mid-17th century English translation of a controversial, conversationary tract, aimed at Jews by the formerly Jewish Samuel of Morocco, the Blessed Jew of Morocco, or a blackamoor made white. You see, the Blessed Jew of Morocco, or a blackamoor made white. So they regarded Hebrews as black during that time. Christian thought, especially among Iberians, Iberia is just another name for Spain, often equated Jews and blacks in a moral manner. Okay. Morano, in the following lines, punning on the general negative meaning of Negro. See what I said earlier? Some of the scholars will say, oh, it doesn't mean Negro, it means pig. Or it means this, conversions or crypto Jews. Regardless, it's a derogatory term that we find that is equated, that is connected to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Okay. And you can see this in Spanish or Latin. Maran right here. Dos negros right here. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's see what else we got here. The writer in the Atlantic Monthly magazine, this is from the book Merchants, Barons, Sellers, and Suits. That's the book right here. Okay, page number 107 says, it says, the writer in the Atlantic Monthly magazine in 1839, who said, when speaking of Shylock, that the skin of the Ethiopian is not easily changed, conflated the American image of the Jew with multiple resonances of what? Blackness. Resonances of blackness. So Jews were stereotyped as being black. Okay. What else we want to read? I'm just trying to pull some things out without reading every single thing here. Okay, this is interesting. Let me read from a little higher. In the black race in North America, which appeared in DeBow's Review in 1856, the association is more comparative, but also underlines the status of both Jews and blacks as outsiders. That successive generations of his race, American blacks, have here been born and reared, no more makes it United States, their country then was Egypt, that of the sons of Israel, for the same reason. So they're saying that how they're trying to equate the captivity of our people in America with that of the captivity of Israel in Egypt. Okay, and that is very interesting because they're making that connection. All right. Now, here's the thing that I want to put out on the table just real quick, because in my studies, I didn't have time to put all information out. There's so much stuff. When the Hebrews were in Spain, majority of them were able to live in their own communities, but a lot of them were assimilated because of persecution and whatnot. I'm going to share with you all some things shortly that you will see, and then I'll play some other things, videos and whatnot. But real quick, in order to prevent themselves from being persecuted, a lot of them actually try to assimilate even more, try to take on more whiteness of the Europeans per se. And then when they were accepted to some degree, those others that were dark complexion, they stayed away from. They try to disassociate themselves from those other ones. And from those that the Spanish were enslaving, they made a disconnect also. All right, so keep that in mind. And then they start to backpedal, saying, well, we're not like this, we're not like this, we're not dark skinned, we're not such like, and whatnot. But the Spanish has a record. They have a record of who's who and whatnot. That's why the Inquisition was really hard over there, grabbing people and torturing them to confess. Okay? So let's move on. There's a lot of other things to read. Let's move on. Later English colonists. This is from the book Black Jews in Africa. I got the book right here. It's on the screen. And the Americas by Tudor Parfit. Now, Tudor Parfit went over to Zimbabwe, and he kind of doubted that the Lemba were actually Israelites. And I believe we have a brother probably on the conference right now who is Lemba descent, and he have made that known to me that he's of Lemba descent. And hopefully I should have a chance to speak to him directly, face to face, I would say. So anyway, Tudor Parfit doubted the claims of these dark-skinned people that look no different from the rest of the population. And when he did the research, he found out that these people are not only Hebrews, but even within that group, they're from the tribe of Levi. And to this day, they're still scratching their heads trying to figure out, well, how in the world? And the people are saying, we were in over by Yemen, and then we were merchants. We got shipwrecked right off of Africa. We defile ourselves by eating mouse. We keep traveling south. We ended up in Zimbabwe. We lived here for centuries. We lost our way, but we have never forgotten who we were. And we didn't marry. We didn't allow ourselves to assimilate too much. We had a system where certain women can come in, but we didn't go out, so that we wouldn't, so we can keep the bloodline flowing. And so they gained some of the phenotypes of the people that was around them, but they knew who they were as Hebrews, okay? Anyway, let's continue. So later English colonists, such as the Quaker William Penn, you heard of Quaker Oats? So just think of that, okay? 1644, 1718, found all manner of signs of Judaism among the Indians. After his first few months, Penn noted of the Native Americans. He said, their eye is little and black, not unlike the straight-looked Jew. Their language is lofty, yet narrow, but like the Hebrew in signification, like shorthand in writing, one word serveth in place of three. For their origin I am ready to believe them of the Jewish race. I mean of the stock of the 10 tribes. And that for the following reasons: first, they were to go to a land not planted or known. We read that in the book of what? Ezra. Which, to be sure, Asia and Africa were, if not Europe. And he that intended, which is the Most High, that extraordinary judgment upon them might make the passage not uneasy to them, as it is not impossible in itself, from the easternmost parts of Asia to the westernmost of America. In the next place, I find them of like countenance, and the children is so lively a resemblance that a man would think himself in Duke's Place or Bury Street in London, where he seeth them. But this is not all. They agree in rites. They reckon by moons. Did y'all hear that? They reckon by moons. They offer their first fruits. They have a kind of feast of tabernacles. They are said to lay their altar upon 12 stones. Let me put that here so y'all can see that. 12 stones. They're mourning a year. They're mourning a year. Customs of women and many things that do not now occur. So, brothers and sisters, you can see back in those days before a lot of these traditions were wiped out, the early colonists and such like has records, recorded information about the Hebrews, even among the native, so-called Native American Indians. Okay, let's look at this book by, it's called True Myth by Nashid Al-Amin. It's called True Myth. In westward migration, let me make this just a little bit bigger. All right, here we go. In their westward migration, many Cassacoid intermingle with black and dark-skinned peoples, and dark or brown-skinned offspring resulted. But the re-intermingling of these within the dominant Caucasian mass bred out the darker elements over half a dozen or more generations. Y'all see that? All right. And the general population remained essentially Caucasian or white in what? Appearance. These Caucasian groups saw themselves as distinctly different from darker skinned races and resolved to retain that distinction, which lead to psychological reaction formation and hatred that Dr. Francis Wellinson's early analysis outlined. See chapter 2. Some of this will be revisited later, but the reader should understand that Caucasian feelings of distinction, group loyalty, and abhorrence towards darker skinned human beings were generally entrenched in the temperaments of most European whites by the 9th century, especially Christianized whites by Greco-Roman sentiments and aspirations. Although the sense of superiority intrinsic in whites over the last several centuries might not yet have developed. Let me see. Let me want to read some stuff. Midway through the 9th century, primarily African Moors were in possession of Iberia. North Africa was becoming increasingly Islamic, and Arabs, who had introduced this great religion to the world, migrated into Egypt and North Africa in large numbers, settling among and intermingling with Black African, Berber, and other mixed race populations. Many Arabs were part of the Moorish occupation of Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal, as were Sephardic Jews out of Northeast Africa and the Holy Land. And the three groups, Moors, Arabs, and Jews, chiefly black and dark-skinned Jews, civilized the country, bringing highly developed art, architecture, remember I talked about that, science, medicine, and agricultural innovations, animal husbandry, manufacturing, industry, music, and advanced mathematics, algebra. Algebra, the word al, that's Islamic phraseology, I would say. Geometry, previously unknown in Europe to the continent, Moors, Jews, and Arabs established the first universities of any kind in Europe, which would directly lead to the educational advancement of the continent and of the European Renaissance of the 15th and 16th centuries. It's a little bit of information, Mr. Paka, So you understand that our people were truly of color back then. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, boop. All right, let's try it again. Oops, there we go. This is from the book Jews in Places That You Never Thought Of. And I have the book right here. Those of you, it's on the screen. Okay. By George E. Lichtblau. Pressed under sweeping regional conflicts, Jews settled as traders and warriors in Yemen, the Horn of Africa, Egypt, the Kingdom of Cush, and Nubia, North African Punic settlements. Let me just jump down here. More immigrants followed these early Jewish settlers to northern Africa following the Assyrian conquest of the Israelites. So you had all of this migration heading down towards Africa. Okay. This catastrophic event not only drove many Jews into exile in Babylon, but also led to the establishment of exile communities around the Mediterranean, including North Africa. Then with Israel coming under Greek, Persian, and later Roman rule. Next slide. Okay. Let's just jump down to this part. The Jewish presence in Africa began to expand significantly in the 2nd and 3rd centuries of the Christian era, extending not only into the Sahara Desert, but also reaching down along the West African coast, and possibly also to some Bantu tribes of Southern Africa, where some 40,000 members of the Lemba tribe still claim Jewish roots. The names of old Jewish communities south of the Atlas Mountains, remember Yeshua says, flee to the where? The mountains. The names of old Jewish communities south of the Atlas Mountains, many of which exist as well into the Renaissance times, can be found in documents in synagogue archives in Cairo, Egypt. So let's continue on. In addition, Jewish, Arab, and Christian accounts cite the existence of Jewish rulers of certain tribal groups and clans identifying themselves as Jewish scattered throughout Mauritania, Senegal, Western Sudan, Nigeria, and Ghana. Among notable Arab historians referring to the existence are Ibn Khaldun, who lived in the 13th century, a respected author on Berber history, the famous geographer Al-Idrisi, born in Ceuta, Spain in 12th century, who wrote about Jewish Negroes, see that right here, in the Western Sudan, and the 16th century historian traveler Leon Africanus, a Muslim from Spain who was raised by a Jewish woman working in his family's household. So if she's working in the family's household, she's what? A servant, okay? Who is said to have taught him Hebrew and immigrated with the family to Morocco in 1492. What happened in 1492? Jews in Spain were expelled from Spain, right? Let's move on. Sephardic Diaspora by Joseph Hantman from the same book. This is just another chapter. It says, this became evident in 71 1 CE, first century, I guess, when Arab armies under Tariq carrying the banner of Islam crossed into Gibraltar, and invaded Spain. Jews whose identity was hardly known, joined the victorious Arab armies. So the Jews that were dark joined the Moors that were dark, the Muslims that were dark, and formed communities. In the immediate wake of these armies, there were large-scale movement of population in North Africa to Spain, among them many Jews. Jews had been in North Africa for hundreds of years, going back to at least the Second Temple period. Y'all see that? Let's move on. With the fall of the temple in 70 CE, many more Jews fled into existing Jewish communities in North Africa, and their number was further increased after the defeat of Bar Kokhba revolt and the harsh reprisal by Rome in 135 CE. These were the Jews who, entering Spain started in 711, became the base upon which Sephardic Jewry was built. So you have these dark-skinned Jews who went into Spain, different accounts, Mishpachah, and became part of that network and gradually intermingled. And there were all kinds of different things that happened, historically speaking. Too much for me to go through right now, but let's read. After their loss to Islam, Christian Spaniards began a slow but relentless battle to reconquer Spain. The Reconquista proceeded province by province, culminating in 1492 with the conquest of Granada and the unification of Christian Spain under Ferdinand and Isabella. Those of you who have questions, hold that until I'm through with the, says the page didn't change. Okay, let me stop and restart it again. Let's try to share that again. Okay. Okay, so can everyone see that now? Just type a yes. Can we all see it? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so let's continue. In the early years of the Reconquista, Christians sought and frequently gained the support of Jews, whom they needed as administrators and financial advisors. Jews were rewarded with large estates and soon found themselves in high positions in most Christian Spain. In the 1300s, this led to much resentment by the church, the nobility, and a rising class of Christian merchants. So the same thing that happened in Egypt when we gained some status, the Egyptian says, let us deal wisely with these Hebrews. Otherwise, they're going to have power over us and they're going to, destroy us. So we find the same thing happening in Spain, where the Christians hated those Hebrews who lived in Iberia, Spain, so forth, and started to attack them and force them to convert, to becoming Catholics. In 1492, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella issued the decree of expulsion, citing as one of the reasons the continuing influence of Jews upon former Jews who had converted. Thus ended 800 years, included some of the most glorious years in Jewish or Hebrew history. It is estimated that close to 300,000 Jews left Spain, many to Portugal. Repeat that again, many to Portugal, where 5 years later, they were forced to convert or leave. Many others fled to Holland, Italy, and most of all to the lands of the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey, Egypt, Palestine, North Africa, Balkans, and others. In Spain and Portugal after 1497, only conversos and crypto-Jews, Marranos, remain. Hounded by the Inquisition, many using their Christian identity joined the colonial explorations to the New World. So this is where you find many of the light skin, at this time, tanned to light skin, even some dark ones travel to find new territories to live. Those that were light skin, of course, they gained status. Those that were dark skin were deemed as being like the Moors and kicked out. But then after the Roman church started to squeeze all Hebrews, whether you're light or dark skin, they're all left, okay? They're all left. So you have to look at history to get the full picture, because those Hebrews who were light-skinned, they had favor just the same way in the South. When you had light-skinned Hebrews who were given favor in the big house, they looked down on those dark-skinned who were in the field, okay? Those who could pass as white didn't want to let their history be known that they were actually Hebrews. They continued to marry other women who were white or men who were white or whatever, and became assimilated into that, where they looked and appeared as being white, okay? So we have to keep that mind open so we can see, get a full picture of Ephraim being assimilated, that you don't recognize him to some degree. All right. Some of these people that came to the New World were part of the conquistadors in Mexico and such like. So there's a saying that there is in Mexico, that there's a black grandmother in the closet, a black grandmother in the closet. Okay. It was the Sephardic Jews escaping from Mexico. So let's cross this out. Escaping from Mexico, who established the Jewish communities in Barbados, St. Thomas of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Curacao, Suriname, and other Caribbean islands. Many typically Sephardic synagogues remain on the islands, but guess who came later? Ashkenazim showed up later on and took over. You see? These are the ones you got to watch. Ashkenazim. On the islands of Sao Tomas y Principe, off the coast of Africa, descendants of Portuguese Jews are also seeking out their roots. Which now brings me to this. Let's get a little deeper, and I want you all to really pay attention to this, okay? Now, this is going to deal with many of our Hebrews who, there's a large population over in the Northeast. They call themselves Cape Verdeans. Cape Verdeans. And these are Hebrews who are speak Portuguese and whatnot, and they're more Cape Verdeans outside of Cape Verde than in Cape Verde itself. But let's look at a sister island off the coast of Africa. This is an article, actually, from a book that is going to be published or was published. It's called Jewish Child Slaves in Sao Tome, Wellington, New Zealand, Jewish Chronicle Publications, 2003, editor Dr. Moshe Liba. During the past 2 years, thanks to Dr. Moshe Liba, former Israeli ambassador to Sao Tome y Principe, that's two small islands, with whom I have collaborated in editing a forthcoming anthology of documents and essays, more of the actual history of these children. So it says Jewish slaves, okay. Nevertheless, when we line up, as it were, the data from archival sources, chronicles, ecclesiastical, that's church documents, and administrative reports and wills, along with early historical along with fairly certain outcomes of the trauma this group of individuals underwent, we can start to get much closer to a probable set of events. Now, this is important, Mishpachah. I want you all to listen carefully. This is actually good information. Now, this is quick map of Maisha. And take a look at this map too. This is San Tome and Principe, right over here. This is the place here, right off the coast of West Africa. You can see Nigeria is over here. Cameroon is over here. Congo is over here. Okay. Guinea is over here. Gabon and such like. Okay. Togo, Ghana over here. Okay. So this is all West Africa. This is the little island, and Principe is right here. This little tiny stuff right there. That's it. Okay. This is a native of the country. You can see how she looks. That's a little Hebrew sister. Let's move on. For these 2,000 children, being the ages of 2 and 12, for the most part to have been taken from their mothers and fathers clearly constitute an abusive event. And we can be fairly certain that each child experienced those moments as traumatic. Listen to this. This is important. Please listen. The state records of the Portuguese crown, as well as Jewish chronicles and memorial writings, further clarifies that these children were not originally Portuguese, but belonged to the families of Jews from Castile, expelled by the Catholic monarchs the previous year in 1492, and hence form part of the Sephardic community that most resisted conversion over the previous hundred years since the persecution and pogroms following the 1391 riots. Moreover, these Jewish children belonged to those families who could not pay the required transit tax. That's taxed to move around. You have to pay a tax just to move around, okay? Imposed, let's go on next, by the Portuguese government, and consequently were declared slaves. What does that say? Slaves of the king. So when you have Hebrews saying, well, the Sephardic people never served as slaves, listen, this is only just a small little ant on top of a huge anthill. Okay, the information that I'm bringing out. Yes, they went through slavery. Yes, they were on ships. Let's prove that. While some scholars object to the number of deported children as 2,000 on the grounds that the ships available to Sao Tome captains who were granted the privilege of taking this cargo as slaves to be brought up as future workers or administrators of the what? Sugar industry. That's the plantation, mishpachah. Sugar plantations were too small for so many passengers, but surely the fact that only about 600 children survived the voyage is an indication of the cruelty involved in stuffing them into cramped and unhygienic quarters for the duration of the voyage. That's on a ship. And thus another reinforcing aspect of trauma, the pains, physical, psychological, being stored up in the minds and bodies of the victims. Other historians are skeptical of the claim that Jews were made slaves by the Portuguese government. And yet the documents that Dr. Liba and I have examined show that this is exactly what happened. First, to the families that had crossed over to Portugal from Castile and could not pay their transit tax, they were claimed by the king as his what? Property. Property is also known as what? Slaves. And distributed to his vassals, that's governors or servant kings of the Portuguese crown. He also handed over the young children to captains appointed to govern Sao Tome. Let's see what the captains did. And some 25 years later, they were explicitly manumitted in the wills of these officers. Thus, from Roman times, social commentators have recommended having slaves in the household to beat rather than a wife or a child, or venting one's sexual desires and anger on serving girl or boy. Sexual desires on who? Whether it's a girl or boy. Oops. Rather than incestuously on one's own sons and daughters. Meaning that in Roman times, the Romans had a practice of sleeping with girls and boys. But instead of doing it to their own children, they did it to the slaves. And this is what the Portuguese captains and the Portuguese people were doing to these children. Get me Joel 3, 2 and 4. Let's read that. Joel 3, 2 and 4. Let's make this just a little bit smaller. And let's see what the scriptures prophesied that will happen to our people. Book of Joel 3, 2 and 4. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible because I want to play a video that's very, very important. What am I looking for? Joel 3, 2 and 4. Let's go ahead and read that. Yeah, we'll open the mics up for dialogue in a little bit, but let's go ahead and read. Read as quick as you can. Read.
I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. They have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot.
A boy for a harlot and what?
Sold a girl for wine that they might drink.
So when you have a sugar plantation, guess what you manufacture besides sugar? Molasses and also rum. The slave trade is exactly what the Bible prophesied. Using our children as harlots in exchange for goods and such like. Okay? Let's continue on. Verses 4.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head?
All right, that's all we need. So let's continue. After marrying with African slaves brought to Sao Tome. So here you have Hebrews that were there in Spain for a long time, rich tradition, sold as slaves. They're meeting up with other Hebrews from Africa, West Africa, and now you have this intermarrying again, reinstilling the most. See, what the Most High is doing is bringing things back for a certain reason. There's a reason why we have the Indians and also the so-called Africans, so-called Indians, so-called Africans coming together, mixing over here in this so-called mixing, actually returning back. And the histories have shown many things, which I'm going to play a video and show you all some stuff too shortly. But let me pick up some speed. And if anything, I will continue next time giving some backgrounds about the Indians. This is only part of it. I'm going to go through some other histories, okay? After marrying with African slaves brought to Sao Tome, the Jewish children produced a mestizo population, notorious for both the upstream big words here, upstream porousness and cruelty, whatever that means. Sao Tome became known as Portugal's least manageable tropical colony, one where the native elite, mostly of mestizo landowners still called New Christians, way in the 18th century resisted rule from the metropolis both by the crown and the church. The island was also feared as one of the worst places for slaves. So the people that were brought there were slaves. Okay, either those kept in camps before being what? Transshipped to the New World, or those working on the sugar plantations or other enterprises, other plantations. Okay, so this island was used as a place where the Hebrews were broken down, and transferred to different parts of other islands and other places in the world. Here's a book, Sao Tome, a novel by Paul D. Kahn, paperback, December 31st, says, in 1485, the Portuguese crown and Catholic Church began to kidnap Jewish children, forcibly convert the young conscripts, and ship them to Sao Tome Island to work the sugar plantation. This is a little-known chapter of the what? Diaspora. Y'all see that? The collision of slavery, sugar agriculture, and discovery of the Americas transformed this island colony into the nidus of the wholesale black slave trade that infected Africa and Western commerce for the next 350 years. Sao Tome tells the story of young Marcel Saulo, abducted with other children from their synagogue in Lisbon and shipped 4,000 miles into the West African island. Mishpachah, we have much to learn. If I could play a little bit of salsa, merengue, or something, I would do so right now. But let me set this thing up for a little history. Play a video shortly. Do you know that they found ancient Hebrew stones in Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico. Hebrew stones in Puerto Rico. This is Dr. Reniel Rodriguez. And our brother, I don't know if he's on the call right now, Brother Louis, has been in contact with Reniel for a while. And as a matter of fact, Louis is planning on making some trips down to Puerto Rico again. I think he just came back from Puerto Rico. He's actually from Puerto Rico. And he's been in contact with Reniel. He's supposed to set something up where we can actually talk to Reniel and look at some of the stones and whatnot. I know some other Hebrews have done so already, but we want to do it ourselves. So Reniel has this whole lot of stuff, and I'm not going to spend time explaining him. I'd rather play the video. Here are some links, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links that shows proof that the Puerto Ricans, and I'm not saying, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, because amongst the Puerto Ricans, you have some of the original Europeans that are not Hebrews that have lived in Puerto Rico also as slave masters, okay? And then you have other, the remainers are Taino descent, which are Hebrews. Now, some of y'all may shake your head and say, no, the Tainoians are not Hebrews. Well, that's your business. That's up to you. But Tainos are throughout the Caribbean, and the Tainos, as you can see with this picture here, Hispaniola, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and other parts of the Caribbean, even parts of Florida and whatnot. And Raniel have looked at the information and says, this thing is going to change history. And guess what? The stones originally was in the hand of the Catholic priests. A Catholic priest, Mishpachah. All right, let's go ahead. Let me show you all some pictures, and I'm going to play video. So here's a picture from the Jamaican Gleaner saying, I am not extinct. Jamaican Taino proudly declares ancestry. Now, we have a sister that's on the call right now. She has a distinct look about her. And if I shake that sister's family tree, I'm sure there's a Taino thing. You know which one I'm talking about? Which one? You want to mute the mic and tell me? You want to give a guess? Yes, absolutely. So I don't want to call her name because she didn't give me permission. But anyway, y'all can guess. Maybe she can type something up there. But anyway, she has certain features, just like I have certain features that have that certain kind of look and whatnot. And then within my family tree, there's something interested in my mother's side of the family. Anyway, so you have in Jamaica, they're saying, hey, we're not extinct, we're here. Look at the sister, the elder one and the younger one. Cubans to reclaim their Taino Indian heritage. Look at the peoples. Let's move ahead. Some more Taino from Cuba. The Virgin Islands Free Press newspaper says Taino Indians are alive and well and living in Puerto Rico. At least their descendants' DNA says so. Look at the features. Look at the faces. Okay? Look at the people. All right, so let's play this video. Let me pull this down. Let me close this out. Let me close this out, Mishpachah. And let me set this up so we can look at this video. Let me stop my share for a moment. And let's take a look. So I'm going to play this short video, and I'm going to play the longer one. 1 second. Okay, let me set this up. Okay, say again. Okay, give me 1 second, Mishpachah. Okay, so let's make it bigger. Here we go. All right, let me get my screen set up so y'all can see. Okay, Mishpachah, let's take a look. So this is in Spanish. So those of you who understand Spanish will know what he's talking about. But he's going to show it in Spanish, and then I have another video that I'm going to play that is amazing. But just take a look at this one first. There we go.
Encuentro investigando esta colección de piezas que fueron encontradas por un sacerdote en el pueblo de Guayanilla en el siglo XIX. Ese sacerdote se llamaba el padre José María Nazario y Cancel. Y pues según relata la historia, él obtuvo información de estas piedras de una anciana moribunda que le dijo el lugar donde estaba enterrada la biblioteca de los indios o la biblioteca de Agua Ivana. Él siguió sus instrucciones, llegó a una ondulación en el terreno donde estaban las piedras y empezó a extraerlas poco a poco y las estudió, y en un principio pues él pensó que la escritura que tenían representada era escritura hebreo-caldaica y que tenían, pues eso tenía relación con las tribus perdidas de Israel. Al ser esto algo tan controversial, pues algunos arqueólogos plantearon que el padre falsificó las piezas y pues poco a poco, en un origen las piezas eran 800, ¿no? Y se fue desmembrando la colección y hoy día pues nos queda aquí en Puerto Rico aproximadamente 280 de esas piezas. Yo lo que estoy tratando de hacer es evaluar, pues, primero la autenticidad de las piezas, o sea, si estas piezas en efecto fueron hechas por el sacerdote en el siglo XIX con el ánimo, pues, tal vez de promover alguna idea religiosa o algo por el estilo, o si en efecto fueron piezas que resultaron por contactos entre los indígenas de Puerto Rico con sociedades de otras partes del mundo antes de que Colón arribara a nuestras costas. Entonces, pues, el estudio envuelve varios elementos. Primero, establecer cuál es el...
Okay, I'm going to pause it there and play another video, because basically what it's saying, just to sum it up, is that this information is controversial because it has Hebrew inscriptions on it. It mentions about the priests and so forth, and it's going to change history. But let me play one that is actually in English that you all can see. So let me close this out. And let me see, number one. I think this is the one. Okay, so this is a little bit. And I'm sorry, it's this is the way the video is. I guess someone had recorded on their phone. But this is Raniel doing a lecture. Let's listen.
Which was where the library of the Indians was hidden. She gave him some instructions, and he followed her lead, and he arrived into like a tunnel depression where he began unearthing artifacts that contained scripted images that for him reflected ancient writing. The images were of anthropomorphic shape, so he termed them anthropoglyphs. And he tried to decipher the symbols that appeared in these stones. After he began working with the materials, he arrived to the conclusion that the writing represented in the stones was of Hebrew Chaldaic origin. And so he associated these stones to the lost tribes of Israel. And obviously, he got a lot of resistance when he began presenting this idea. But there were, different researchers coming to the Americas and Puerto Rico specifically, looking for information. And one of them was Alphonse Pinard, who was commissioned by the French government to come to the Americas and look for ancient languages, and also to buy archaeological materials. And he was really famous. He bought the crystal skulls. He was the one that brought them to France. And these are the ones that appear in the Indiana Jones movies. And so things that he got together with the priest, and this is the earliest evidence that we have anything written about the stones. He got together with the priest sometime between November of the year 1880 and February of 1881, and he saw the stones, and he was the first one to really make an interpretation. He said that the first ones that the father found were authentic, but then that the people from the town, when they saw that the priest was really interested in this, some began replicating some of them. So he posed a situation where we have some stones that are authentic and others that are replicated. And so recently, I've been researching this collection and been able to identify that the largest collection remaining outside of Puerto Rico is actually in the Dupuy Museum in France, in Paris. And this guy brought the stones. They have 38 of the stones of Father Nazario there. I actually saw some of his ancient pictures, the drawings, and compared it with modern artifacts that are there. And he is important not only because he mentioned that some of these stones were authentic, but also, as is mentioned in the documentary that we just saw, which is really great, by the way, he mentioned the only information that we have thus far on the specific provenience of this stone. And I just got this document from the museum in France. And it says, that the stones come from Puerto Rico, Región de Janoa. And that's what was being mentioned, that thus far the only area that I have been seeing related to this name is associated, to the lands of the tribe of Ibrahim. And so, Pinar was kept on being interested in the stones. I just found this letter that was written by Father Nazario in 1908.
He says the tribe of Ephraim,
28
right?
years later than what he first met with the priest. And it talks about a letter that Pinard wrote to the priest from Paris. And I haven't been able to locate this letter, but to me it is quite possible that it provides an additional interpretation by Alphonse Pinard of this collection. And the collection has intersected with some of the leading figures on the history of Puerto Rico. And some of you as Boricuas, I will mention some names that will really resonate with you. The best friend of Father Nazario was this guy, Manuel Seno Gandia. And Manuel Seno Gandia is credited with writing the earliest novel in Puerto Rican history, La Charca. We are all told in the school to read this novel. And so in the year 1881, Seno Gandia was brought to Spain to celebrate the centennial of Calderón de la Barca. And so the priest gave him 2 stones so that he took to Spain to show them there. And so the priest told him, please don't get rid of these stones. These are really important. So when he went to Spain, he met with one of his professors, and who was actually the founder of the Anthropological Museum of Madrid. And the professor, when he saw stones, said, please just give it to me, give me one of them. So he gave one of the stones to his professors. And then Seno Gandia came back to Puerto Rico. And Father Nazario was really mad because he was really attached to these stones. So when this novel, La Charca, was being written, the first draft of the novel contained a character that was a priest, but it was a really humble priest, not very knowledgeable. And so Seno Gandia showed that draft to Father Nazario. Father Nazario was, really mad about the way that he portrayed the priest. So then Seno Gandia changed, the character of the priest, the way it was being conveyed, and he showed it again to Father Nazario. And then Father Nazario said, okay, now he's a priest, is more like me now. So you are forbidden about the issue of the stone. And so, these issues in terms of Puerto Rican history are very important because, as we will see, many of these stones began being dispersed as the lost tribes of Israel across the different museums of the world, some of the great museums of the world, and some of them, even though we have primary evidence that they were put in the museums, I went through the catalogs, and right now some of these stones are lost. So when the priest got the stones, he bought a house. And I found the record of the time he bought the house. It was a house of this type of architecture, really typical in southern Puerto Rico. And I began finding evidence that this house served as a museum where he located the stones. And he brought people in, and we're talking about Roman Valdoriotti de Castro, Agustin Estal, you know, the father of Puerto Rican science. They met with him, and they all saw these stones. So this was really an important issue. Actually, Father Nazario wrote a book. It was really a revolutionary book, talking about where did Columbus land in Puerto Rico, and he thought that the place where Columbus landed was not in the west, as usually was thought, but it was in the south of Puerto Rico. And he thought that the location of Columbus landing spot was there because Agüeybaná lived there, because his stones were there. And so when Father Nazario presented that idea, the island of Puerto Rico, you know, this was in the commemoration of the 4th century of the supposed discovery of Puerto Rico in 1893. And the island basically divided in two. You had the people that thought that Columbus had arrived through the south, and the people who thought that he came from the west. And so there's like lines like this, you know, desde que el Padre Nazario, por licencia del obispo, mandó a los viejos reinantes su folleto colombino, se armó la marimonera y se despertó el prurito de rectificar con R la historia de Puerto Rico. This was like a major event in the history of Puerto Rico, and the stones were featured prominently there. So by that year, 1893, we have the first evidence of a book, of what I call the lost manuscript, that was written by the Father Nazario about the stones, where it contained his idea that the stones represented remains of the lost tribes of Israel. You know, it was called Escritura Aborigen de Carib. And so another person that got into the mix, you know, is Cayetano Colitoste. Cayetano Colitoste is basically one of the fathers of Puerto Rican history. And so the Father Nazario went to Cayetano Colitoste and asked him, hey, I'm trying to interpret these stones, you know, can you help me? And Cayetano Colitoste lived in San Juan. Father Nazario lived in south of Puerto Rico. And so Cayetano Colitoste said, well, yes, send me the stones, you know, and I'll study them and then I'll give them back to you. And basically the priest never did it because he didn't want to get rid of the stones. But I have some additional reference, you know, that it was during this time that he began to refine some of his ideas about the writing that was present in the stones, and his notes that this was a Hebrew Chaldaic type of writing. And even though we don't have the manuscript, we have ideas derived from presentations that were eventually put out in the press that contain small summaries of the ideas that he was developing at that point. And so he wasn't the only one saying that the indigenous people of the Caribbean had relationships with the lost tribes of Israel. Actually, by the year 1889, Leonfroy de Toron wrote another book, you know, talking about the Phoenicians having influence on the people of Hispaniola. So this was an idea that was really being actively thought after. But as the documentary that we just saw presented, you know, there is this.
Okay, Mishpaka, I'm going to pause it here because it goes on for about 33 minutes. So let me see. Let me go see. So what I can probably do is play the rest next week. Make a note here. And so y'all can get the full thing, because there's much more. But I wanted to share with you all, family, and let me just close this out, the importance of, you know, seeing what the scriptures talk about that will come to pass with Israel being scattered among the nations, that these things actually happened. And the Most High has made a promise to regather Israel again. So yes, Hebrews have been in Spain and assimilated there for a long time. And they traveled and came down to the Caribbean and other places of the world, also linking up with other Hebrews who already were here. Why that is? Perhaps the Most High has allowed Israel to come together again in these strange circumstances, because the future is looking bright for us in terms of bringing us back together, but first breaking out the spirit of contrariness out of us and bringing back the Torah in our hearts. Now, of course, one of the problems is that we still have this problem between the northern and the southern kingdom. But the Bible does have a prophecy, and let's go and read that in the book of Isaiah, chapter 11. And I'm going to open up the line shortly for those of you who would like to share your thoughts. So let me see here. Those of you who want to share your thoughts, we will take your questions. Okay, so go ahead and read for me. Isaiah 11, 12, and 13.
And he shall
Go again.
And he shall set up an ensign for the nations.
And the Most High will set up a sign for the nations. Read.
And shall assemble the outcast of Israel.
And he's going to assemble the outcasts of Israel. Read.
And gather together the dispersed of Judah.
Mm-hmm.
From the four corners of the earth.
And he's going to gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners, Mishpachah, not from one place only, but four corners. Read.
The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off.
Read.
Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim.
So the problem that I mentioned earlier with Jonah, why he didn't want to go to Nineveh, the reasons that the two houses were warring against each other, that thing is still happening today. And this is explained why we have all these problems. We say, well, those people are not our people. But you don't see there's something much deeper. The world has given us a limited amount of information. The doctor, the professor is showing that, listen, these people knew from way back in 1800s, but they kept certain things suppressed. A lot of this information that we're bringing out, you're not going to find it so easily. You have to really dig for it. All right? But the Bible is saying Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. That whole problem between the two houses, that's going to end. Let's get Ezekiel 37 and 16. This is the last of our scriptures, and then we're going to open up the lines. Ezekiel 37 and 16.
Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick.
Take one stick.
And write upon it for Judah.
For Judah.
And for the children of Israel.
That's the two houses.
Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions.
So you have two houses, the house of Judah and all those that are joined with him, and you have the house of Joseph, okay, which is called Ephraim. For Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his what?
Companions.
His companions. So Mishpachah, this is Bible prophecy. We were broken, we're divided, we've been scattered, the bones are scattered everywhere across this earth. We showed that Hebrews at one point were people of color. We're still people of color, okay? We have mixed in with the Arabs. We've been in the Hamite nations. We've been in Europe. We've been different complexions. We've been through that change of the governments trying to, deal with us unkindly, enslave. Some of them are taken and forced into slavery. Some fled into different parts of Africa. Some went into the Caribbean. We also looked at the little taste because we're going to go next week into the Indians a little bit more. Taino and such like. We can see the history, the richness of the history. When Columbus came in, those guys and all the Spanish and the Portuguese and Europeans, they destroyed a lot of evidence. They wiped out people, they destroyed the stuff. They confiscated a lot of these things, and now they're relics in somebody's mansion somewhere. The professor mentioned about the movie Indiana Jones, that they actually used one of the stones in that thing. The inscriptions are Paleo Hebrew. All right. We also going to look at next week, most high willing, the Las Lunas Decalogue stone with the 10 Commandments that's found in New Mexico on a mountain. It was there before the Europeans came. Okay. How did it get there? Written in a mountain. Who's going to travel way to New Mexico? We know that New Mexico was once part of the Spanish conquistadors, but at that time they didn't write Paleo Hebrew. So the people that were there when the Spaniards came, those people had that Hebrew connection. So we're going to look at all those different things. We don't have all the information. We don't have all the things because stuff is coming out. Some stuff are being withheld. We try to make the connections, but we cannot play God and say that person is not a Hebrew because of what you see. We have to change that mindset. And we have to let the Ruach HaKodesh deal with things accordingly. All right? Let the Most High do what the Most High said he will do, and you do the part of returning back to the covenant. Don't be judge and jury and all that stuff, executioner. Okay? So with that said, you want to read something? Okay, so my Isha wants to read the book of Ezra and 13. Let me pull it up.
39.
All right, give me one moment. As a matter of fact, let me do this. Okay, so let's get the book of Ezra. It's out the way. And let's read 2nd Ezra. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what chapter and verse?
13 and 39.
2nd Ezra 13. Second book of Ezra 13. And let's take a look. And let's read. What verse?
39,
39. 39. Okay.
40.
So let's read this.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It says, and whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Shalmaneser the king of Assyria led away captive.
Mm-hmm.
And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwell, that they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land.
Mm-hmm.
And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river. For the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely 1.5 years. And the same region is called Azareth. Then dwelled they there until the latter time. And now when they shall begin to come, the highest shall stay the springs of stream again.
Uh-huh.
And they may go through, therefore, so as thou the multitude with peace.
That sounds like a second Exodus. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we give praises to our King. We have all the prophecies. We have everything that is there. It is just our hearts that needs to be bent. So what say you, Israel? Any comments or questions? You can raise your hand. I'll see you, and I'll move you over where you can speak freely. Any hands? Yes. Okay, I don't see any hands as yet. Give y'all a moment. Any comments, any questions, Ms. Picard? Don't see any questions in the comments room, chat room. Let's see. Okay, brother Anthony. Okay, let's get you. Okay, brother Anthony.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Very, very nice lesson tonight. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, we tend to draw a line and try to determine who is Israel and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
But the scriptures, as we read, tells us not to do that. It's telling us let the wheat and the tares grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I might feel this wheat look like a tear or this tear look like a wheat, and give the treatment that the wheat's supposed to get to the tear or vice versa. So I really love the lesson, and I am sitting back enjoying it, and I hope that you said you would, that as you go in deeper into I guess the various other people that we tend not to look at or respect as Israel, as it comes out, I guess the many eyes will be open. And again, those who wants to learn, it's written there. But, you're always going to have those who prefer it to be as it was. And they are going to ignore that. But I thank our Heavenly Father that, he's using you in that instance to show the various things that others wouldn't. So I just want to say all praises to the Father and thanks not just to you, but to him for using us, for using you to show that to us.
Well, Todah Rabbah, all praises to our King. We thank our Most High for granting us the opportunity to see these things in these last days. So thank you, Brother Felix. Let me get Sister Givens. And Sister Givens.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sis. The mic is all yours.
Oh, okay. I enjoyed this lesson too. You just brought so much information. I know this would be one of the lessons I want to see again, just because there was so much information. But when you were showing some of the literature pertaining to Spain and the people who were there, such as the Arabs, the Moors, the Jews. It was like 3 groups of people there. And I thought for a second, I said, the Moors, exactly who were the Moors? Were they indigenous Africans or Hamitic people? What is your understanding of who they were specifically? Because I sometimes wondered if the Moors weren't, Islamic too. So I was just curious about that.
Some historians have deemed, first of all, the Moors were Islamic. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, there are different historians who have recorded some Hamite people who were converted into Islam as part of the Moors, because what the Arab nations did when they conquered certain nations, they would incorporate certain men as part of the army to fight on their behalf. So you had some of those too, but also Israelites were scattered into all these places and were also swept up and were labeled a general term Moors. So you will see some historians say that Hebrews were called Moors, and some that would says no, they were not called Moors, and such like. But generally speaking, you can say Hebrews were classified as Moors. We can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I take it they were basically all a dark people, and they were kind of just lumped together.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I enjoyed this lesson tonight. It's been enjoyable just listening to it, listening to the history.
Thank you so much, sis. I'm going to put you back on mute, and we have Brother Miletus over. Oops. Brother Miletus. Shalom, brother. Let's get your mic. Brother Miletus, if you can unmute your mic.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Very good. Brother Anthony has spoken my mind and put in word the way I was not able to. Indeed, in fact, thank you for the teaching. It's really inspiring, and you had spoken from being God inspired. That is wonderful. I mean, that is really great indeed. And I want to say that some people are being too sure of being Hebrews. I think from my own side, but maybe in the sight of God, or on the day before God, they might not be Hebrews. So I would say that people should be happy for the awakening for everyone, and stop saying this person is Jew, this person are not this person are Hebrew, these are not Hebrews, we are the only Hebrews, or things like that, because I think the Most High is the one to decide who is a true Hebrew and who is not. And we, getting the knowledge of this great, wonderful message today, should be glad and happy for everyone under the sun that are getting this message and seeing kind of saying it that there are something that brings me to this to be a chosen person. It's a joy for everyone, all the Hebrews all over the world, and those people that are trying to separate who is and who is not. I'm afraid if they are teaching, if they are teaching through the if they are inspired by God to teach, because being a Hebrew is a blessing and should be for everyone, and not, that people should not try to say who is who. I may say, I accept it and I'm glad to be, but what if I'm not at last a Hebrew? Then I can be a servant to serve in the house of God, because I have believed it and keep the commandment of God. That is for me more important than to be too sure of being a Hebrew, but at last not being, or not, I see myself as a Hebrew, but in real sense, I am not before God by blood. That's what I want to say. I think it's a little bit difficult for me to put it in real words.
I understand everything you're saying, brother, and you're absolutely right. You see, the problem is that we have too many people trying to play God and trying to do his work instead of focusing on the Torah. If it so happened that you and I are not Hebrews, we will make good servants in the kingdom.
Exactly.
And I will be content to be a servant in the
I too.
So I have no problem with that. Okay, whatever he wants me to do, I will do it. But the Most High have shown us through many different sources, resources and whatnot, that we are Israelites. Be content with that information, but don't leave from where you are and try to put down others who have been saying that they are Hebrews. Now you're saying, well, no, they're not Hebrews.
Thank you.
That's the problem. So Matthew 24, read that part where the angels will be the ones. Brother Felix said it very well, and this is the backup for that too on another side. Not just the wheat and the tares, because you see, churchianity has been teaching us, let the wheat and the tares grow together in church. It has nothing to do with church. It has never been about church. It's the world. The wheat and the tares is in the world, because the wheat are the Most High's, as he says, he will bring back into we shall go rejoice and bringing in the sheaves, that
Right.
song. The sheaves are the Hebrews.
Yeah.
The wheat, okay? So let's get Matthew 24 real quick, and then we'll take another hand here.
31.
Read for me, please.
It says, and he shall send his angels
Uh-huh.
with a great sound of a trumpet.
He's going to send his who?
His angels.
He's going to send Hebrews.
His angels.
Uh-huh. What are you going to do?
With a great sound of a trumpet.
Uh-huh.
And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
See that? So the Most High is going to gather through his angels those that belongs to him. Very, very simple.
He also said that he's going to sift the house of Israel. So because he knows, you know, those that are his and those who are not, he knows, you know. So that's not for anybody to decide. That's for the Most High to decide that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the color of the people either.
So let's get, thank you so much, brother.
Thanks to the Most High.
And we will talk another time, okay?
Yeah.
I owe you a conversation, so we'll meet up sometime.
That would be fine. I mean, I should have called you, not you me alone.
That's okay. We'll plan something, okay?
Okay.
All right, shalom.
Shalom.
Okay, let's see. Sister Diana, let's see. You want to say something, sis? Sister Diana, mic is all yours. Shalom. Okay, let's get. Okay, let's get Zephaniah. Zephaniah, mic is all yours.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to tell you this was a great class. You know, I was looking forward to this, and I just was in front of the TV taking pictures of the books and stuff because I couldn't write all that down, you know. But I got the information, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to read a lot of it because it's very interesting. Also, I kind of see what you're saying with the Hebrew brothers. They also like the Jamaicans, not Jamaicans, the Rastafarians. They pretty much down in the Rastafarians also because they're saying that they're not going to make it. They're not chosen because of Al Sahida. I don't know exactly if I'm pronouncing his name right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a kind of conflict with one. You know, I had to let him know. You know, I took my DNA test and I know exactly, you know, where I'm from. And I asked him, did he know exactly where he was from? But to say that these guys didn't have a chance. And I told him as long as if they serve the Most High and they follow Torah, you know, they have a chance to, you know, enter the kingdom and they could possibly be Hebrews. And he was, you know, pretty much no, you know, once your blood is tainted with a European or whatever, that's it. And I told him, then what's your chances? Because really you're condemning yourself is what I told him, because if you are not definitely a Hebrew 100%, you pretty much then just condemned yourself.
Absolutely.
You can't go around doing that. And of course I didn't hear no more from him after that, but
of course not.
Yeah.
Because
but yeah, this was a great class.
Thank you so much. Because brother, the thing is that now we put ourselves in a position as if we is God ourselves, that we can see the past to know exactly that from all the way from Abraham's loins, I can be able to see the movement of the seed, the sperm moving from Hebrew to Hebrew with no corruption whatsoever. You know,
right.
When we start acting like that, we shoot ourselves in the foot.
What they don't understand is they don't understand the Ruach. They don't understand the, as they say, spirit. I think everyone is being called by their spirit, the spirit of your of Yah. is entering you, and if you all, you're gonna go to his way. You got other people who just like stuck in Christianity and they don't want to learn no more. They want to stop right where they are. That's because they don't have that spirit of the Ruach Kodesh in them to further seek this information. But it's going to come to you. This is how you're going to know. And don't Scripture say that he's going to lift everyone up? And I would figure the best way to lift everyone up in the easy way is to tell who has his spirit or not. And that's going to be it. Even though I don't mean lift up in heaven, because I know heaven's going to be on earth, but it's going to be easy to tell.
Well, and I see a question here. Brothers asking, how can we truly know that we are Hebrew? What would be the best way to answer that? Brother Zephaniah, you want to give it a try? What's the best way to answer that? How would you know?
Well, for one thing, you're going to keep Torah. You're going to be in the spirit of Yahweh. You're going to live in his ways and his I really can't explain it. You're going to do as he inquired for you to do. You're going to be his by showing your actions being in a way that he would want you to be.
That, and also to add to that, Deuteronomy chapter 28 is strong. It's a very powerful pronouncement upon Israel. He says,
the curses and blessings,
they will follow you wherever you go. I was having conversations with my brother. Well, I don't think he's on the line, but about Puerto Rico, for example, about the curses that's heavy on Puerto Rico. A lot of people don't know about the Puerto Ricans, what they go through and stuff. They see them, they think that they're very successful, whatever the case may be. They live in ghettos just like you and I. They're oppressed. There was one I guess a doctor or scientist that called them cockroaches. Okay. Yes. And there is a whole bunch of pharmaceuticals companies in Puerto Rico pushing a lot of abortion and birth control stuff. They've been experimented on. I have documents on that. There's a lot of different information with regards to what they go through on that island, and they wouldn't let the people go. So there's a reason for that. It's complex, but the reality is that Deuteronomy shines through. No matter where you are, the other nations will be above you. You'll be the lowest. You can try all kinds of different things. You may have one or two Hebrews that will be successful. Don't be fooled by that, because even in Egypt, we had Hebrews who were officers over us in slavery.
You think in the process of waking up to this truth, though, and you come in under Torah and you live it in the ways of Yeshua, you think that there's some kind of inkling of protection maybe that keeps you separated from the world? Because we plan on him returning soon, and we see it as a fleshly thing. From what Scripture says, it's definitely going to be fleshly when we return to him. So he's going to have to keep that remnant, I guess, with the seal, as they say in Revelation, which is Torah, that seal upon our heads and the way we think and the way we act. Is there some kind of protection, though, that's, I guess, covering us, I would figure?
Well, when we look at the models that we have before us, like Daniel was righteous, but he was a servant, and he was taken up with the rest of those young men and was in captivity for a long time. He died in captivity. And though he was given some privilege, it was hard. He was thrown into prison.
Right.
What is it, twice? You're talking about, yes, he's going to protect us, but the righteous is going to bear also suffer along with the unrighteous. We're all in captivity, and yes, he will protect us. He will use
the only difference with that is Daniel was it like if 100 was the finishing part, he might have been in a 25%. Right now we are in an 80 to 90 to where this is about to end. You see what I mean? So it looked like he would really want to keep his his children really, secure.
Well, the Most High definitely said he will also remember us and give us favor while we're in this captivity. So fear not, Israel. The Most High loves us and he will do for us, but he also guarantees us the resurrection. So however you look at it, we win, we win, we win. We just have to
right. Either way you go, yes.
And he'll do the rest. Don't fear death. Don't fear anything.
Oh, no, not at all. Mm-hmm. When I was a person in the street, I grew up in a rough neighborhood, as they say, the project. And I didn't fear death then. And the consequences of where I could end up really wasn't, thought of. But now that I'm in the truth, I really don't fear death at all now. At all. Even because I know where the consequences of that still will lead me into a better place. See what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, brother. It's really good to talk to you again.
Let me
back and mute. Sister Sarah, what's on your mind?
I just also wanted to say that the scriptures tells us that he's going to bring us out of our graves and he will put us back in the land and he's going to teach us of his laws and of his ways. So we have nothing to worry about. We just have to, be determined to, walk in Torah. And he knows, all our hearts. And he says he put us here and he said he's going to get us out. And so, we believe that.
Absolutely. I'll take, let's see if Sister Diana is ready to speak. Diana, what's on your mind? Okay. Sister Diana?
No. I didn't have anything to say.
Shalom. Oh, okay. All right, sis. Well, I saw your hand, so I figured you had something to say.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Put you back on mute. All right, family. Brother Felix, would you mind closing out with prayer? You mind closing out with prayer? It's possible. Okay, it doesn't look like it's possible. Okay. We'll ask Brother Miletus, let's have you close out with prayer. How is that?
Okay. Shall we pray? First in Jerusalem. Our Father, who dwelled in the heavens of heaven, we thank you, Father, for your grace, for your blessings on your children, that you open our eyes and letting us know who you are, whom we are to you, that you have made your commandments not burdensome to us, and that we can now accept your commandment and keep it and loving you with all our hearts. I am grateful and thanking you for all Israelites, those here and away, that you have given us the grace of knowing you. Please bless us and grant us your grace that we may grow stronger in faith. Bless your servant more, that he may have joy in teaching your gospel, in teaching message you have used him to teach. Please help him that he may be strong in faith and that it may be well with him and his family. Bless all Israelites, those in need, those in that are sick, that we may be healed physically, spiritually. We love you, Father, and we pray for your grace for this day, that it may be well with us, because we pray through Yehoshua, our Messiah. Amen.
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 Wonderful.
Thank you so much,
Amen.
brother.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Thank
prayer.
you.
Amen.
And for those Hebrews who will be joining us tomorrow for classes at 1 p.m., I hope to see you all. And with that, we're going to say shalom, shalom, family. Love you all. Stay strong, stay sharp. May the Most High bless and keep you all until next time.
Amen.
Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, family.
Shalom.
Shalom.